Chapter 1. Solid Ground. Warren Blackwood stood on the porch of the Victorian-style home that had been in his family for 3 generations. At 42, his salt and pepper hair and weathered face told the story of a man who had worked with his hands his entire life. The third-generation contractor had built his reputation on honesty and craftsmanship, values that had become increasingly rare in the construction industry of Oak Ridge, Connecticut. The evening breeze carried the scent of his wife's gardenia perfume before she appeared beside him. Bridget Blackwood, with her copper hair and practiced smile, slipped her arm through his. At 38, she still turned heads, though Warren had noticed her growing increasingly distant over the past year. "Beautiful sunset," she said, her voice carrying a hint of something Warren couldn't quite place. "Reminds me of the ones we used to watch when we first moved in." Warren nodded, remembering those early days 15 years ago when they'd been young and so full of hope. Back then, he just started his contracting business, and Bridget had supported him tirelessly, working double shifts as a paralegal to keep them afloat. "Hard to believe we've been here so long," Warren replied, his hand unconsciously touching the worn wooden railing he'd replaced twice now. "About that," Bridget turned to face him, her expression suddenly serious. "I got a call from my mom today. Dad's medical bills are piling up, and they're about to lose their house." Warren frowned. His in-laws, Theodore and Vivian Cole, had always been financially comfortable. At least that's what they projected. Ted owned a small accounting firm in town, and they lived in a modest but well-kept home across town. "That bad?" "I thought their insurance." "Cancer treatments aren't cheap." "Warren," Bridget interrupted, a flash of irritation crossing her face. "And with Dad unable to work, they're drowning." Warren nodded slowly. Ted's pancreatic cancer diagnosis 6 months ago had hit the family hard, but he'd had no idea things had deteriorated so quickly financially. "What are you thinking?" Warren asked, though he already sensed the direction of the conversation. "We need to help them," Bridget said firmly. "This house, it's too big for just us now anyway. Zach's in college, and Lily's leaving next year." Warren felt something cold settle in his stomach. Their son Zachary was studying architecture at Cornell, following in his father's footsteps, but with grander designs. Their daughter Lily was a high school senior with dreams of becoming a veterinarian. This house had been their childhood home, filled with memories. "You want to sell our home?" Warren's voice came out harsher than intended. "It's just a house, Warren," Bridget replied, her tone softening as she placed a hand on his arm. "We can downsize to something that makes more sense for us now. My parents need us." Warren looked out at the property that had been his sanctuary, the workshop where he'd taught Zach to build his first birdhouse, the maple tree where Lily had broken her arm climbing too high, the garden where he and Bridget had spent countless Sunday afternoons. "Let me think about it," he said finally. "Maybe there's another way we can help them." Bridget's expression hardened slightly. "They don't have time, Warren. Dad's prognosis is getting worse. They need help now." That night, Warren couldn't sleep. He slipped out of bed and made his way to his home office, where he began reviewing their finances. The house was nearly paid off. His father had helped with the down payment years ago, a gesture of faith in Warren's future. Its value had increased significantly, and selling now would provide a substantial sum. But something about the situation felt off. Warren pulled up Ted and Vivian's address on the county property records website. Their mortgage had been refinanced twice in the past 5 years. Strange for a couple nearing retirement. He dug deeper, finding tax liens he hadn't known about. Ted's accounting business appeared to be struggling long before the cancer diagnosis. When Warren finally crawled back into bed at 3 a.m., Bridget stirred. "You okay?" she murmured sleepily. "Yeah," he lied. "Just thinking about your parents." She reached for his hand in the darkness. "Thank you. They'll be so grateful for our help." Warren squeezed her hand, but the knot in his stomach only tightened. The next day, Warren drove to Cole Accounting to speak with Ted's business partner, Harold Moss. The small office was quieter than it should have been during tax season. "Warren," Harold greeted him with surprise. A thin man with perpetually hunched shoulders, Harold had always struck Warren as someone constantly preparing to apologize. "Good to see you. How's Bridget?" "She's good," Warren replied, settling into the chair across from Harold's cluttered desk. Worried about her dad. Harold's smile faltered. We all are. Terrible situation. How's the business holding up without him? Harold glanced away too quickly. Managing. You know how it is. Warren nodded, then leaned forward. Level with me, Harold. Ted's my father-in-law. I need to understand what's really going on. Harold removed his glasses, polishing them nervously on his tie. Warren, I'm not comfortable. My wife wants us to sell our family home to help them, Warren interrupted. I think I deserve to know if that's really necessary. Harold's shoulders slumped further. The business has been struggling for years, he admitted quietly. Ted made some investments that didn't pan out. Then there were gambling debts. Warren felt as if he'd been punched. Gambling. It started small, after Vivian's mother died. A way to cope, I guess. But it got worse. And the cancer treatments? Harold hesitated. There is cancer, and there are treatments. But their insurance is covering most of it. He wouldn't meet Warren's eyes. I've said too much already. Warren left the accounting office with more questions than answers. Instead of heading home, he drove to Riverdale Heights, the upscale neighborhood where Ted and Vivian lived. As he approached their modest split-level home, he noticed an unfamiliar luxury SUV in the driveway. He parked across the street, debating whether to go in. Through the living room window, he could see Vivian gesturing animatedly as she spoke to someone just out of view. She looked healthier and more vibrant than she had at their last family dinner, where she'd appeared drawn with worry over Ted's health. Warren was about to get out of his truck when the front door opened. A tall, broad-shouldered man in an expensive-looking suit stepped out, followed by Vivian. She reached up and straightened his tie with a familiarity that made Warren's blood run cold. The man kissed her cheek before heading to the SUV. Warren ducked down as the vehicle passed, catching only a glimpse of the driver. Handsome, probably in his late 40s, with a confident bearing of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. As the SUV disappeared around the corner, Warren sat up, his mind racing. Who was this man, and what was his connection to his in-laws? On the drive home, Warren's phone rang. Bridget's name flashed on the screen. Hey, he answered, trying to sound normal. Did you think about what we discussed? Bridget asked without preamble. Warren gripped the steering wheel tighter. I think we should invite your parents over for dinner tomorrow. Talk about all the options. There was a pause. What's there to talk about? They need help, Warren. We have the means to help them. Humor me, Warren said, fighting to keep his voice steady. One dinner. Bridget sighed. Fine. I'll call Mom and set it up. That night, Warren did something he'd never done before. While Bridget showered, he checked her phone. The passcode hadn't changed since she'd shared it with him years ago, Lily's birthday. What had changed was the content of her messages. A text thread with someone saved as DC contained hundreds of exchanges going back months. Warren scrolled through them with increasing dread. Miss you already. Meeting with W about the house tonight. Once this is done, we can finally be together. Warren felt physically ill as he continued reading, discovering in real time that not only was his wife unfaithful, but she was conspiring with her lover to take the home he loved. He quickly replaced the phone when he heard the shower turn off. When Bridget returned to the bedroom, Warren pretended to be engrossed in a construction magazine. He studied her covertly as she applied lotion to her arms and legs, wondering how he could have missed the signs. How long had this been going on? And how was this connected to her parents' supposed financial troubles? Warren didn't sleep that night, his mind working feverishly on a plan. By morning, he knew what he needed to do. Play along, gather evidence, and understand the full scope of the betrayal before deciding how to respond. If Bridget wanted a house of cards, he would let her build it, then watch as she stood inside when it came crashing down. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Foundation. The Cole family dinner revealed more than anyone had intended. Warren, now hyper-aware of every glance and gesture, watched the dynamics between his wife and in-laws with new eyes. Ted Cole, allegedly weakened by cancer treatments, showed no physical symptoms beyond a slightly gaunt appearance. Vivian dominated the conversation, emphasizing their financial desperation. The medical bills just keep coming, Vivian lamented, dabbing at dry eyes with her napkin. And the insurance company battles us on everything. Warren nodded sympathetically while mentally cataloging the inconsistencies. Ted wore a new watch, a detail that wouldn't escape a contractor who worked with his hands. Vivian's purse was a recent designer purchase he recognized from the advertisements Lily had shown him. "We've been thinking about your situation," Bridget said, reaching for Warren's hand across the table in a show of unity. "We want to help. We're considering downsizing," Warren added, watching their reactions carefully. "Our house is too big now, with the kids gone." The flicker of triumph in Vivian's eyes was subtle but unmistakable. Ted studied his wine glass, unable to meet Warren's gaze. "That's very generous," Ted said finally. "But we couldn't possibly." "Family helps family," Bridget interrupted. "We've already spoken to a realtor." This was news to Warren, but he maintained his facade. "Not yet, honey. Just exploring options." A flash of annoyance crossed Bridget's face before she composed herself. "Well, I did make an appointment for a valuation next week." After the Coles departed, Warren confronted Bridget in the kitchen as she loaded the dishwasher with unnecessary force. "You contacted a realtor without discussing it with me first?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "I was being proactive," she replied defensively. "The market's hot right now. We need to move quickly." "And what's the rush exactly?" Warren pressed. "Your father doesn't look that sick to me." Bridget slammed a plate down. "What are you implying? That my father is faking cancer?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying he looks good for someone supposedly at death's door." "He was having a good day." Bridget's voice rose. "How dare you question something like that?" Warren raised his hands in surrender, deciding to change tactics. "You're right. I'm sorry. I'm just struggling with the idea of leaving this place." Bridget's expression softened, but her eyes remained calculating. "I know it's hard, but it's just a house. We'll make new memories somewhere else." Warren nodded, wondering how many other lies she'd told him with that same convincing sincerity. The next day, Warren took a calculated risk. He called in sick to work, something he rarely did, and followed Bridget after she left for a paralegal job at Silverman & Cohen law firm. Instead of heading downtown, however, she drove to Westfield, the next town over. Warren maintained a careful distance as Bridget's car wound through increasingly upscale neighborhoods before stopping in front of an imposing construction site. The framework of what would clearly be a mansion stood partially completed on a hillside lot with spectacular views. From his position down the street, Warren watched as Bridget got out of her car and approached a tall man examining blueprints. Even from a distance, Warren recognized him as the same man he'd seen at the Coles house. The man, presumably DC from the text messages, greeted Bridget with a passionate kiss. Warren photographed the encounter with his phone, his hand shaking slightly with anger and adrenaline. He zoomed in as best he could, capturing the blueprints they were reviewing together, their intimate body language, the casual way the man's hand rested possessively on Bridget's lower back. After Bridget left, Warren parked in a visitor spot and approached the construction site, noting the sign out front. Future home of Dorian Chambers Custom Estates. So that was DC's full name. "Can I help you?" a foreman called out as Warren studied the framework. Warren fell easily into the role of a potential client. "Impressive structure. I'm a contractor myself, looking for some inspiration for a project." The foreman, Walt, according to his hard hat, puffed up slightly. "Mr. Chambers only takes on a few select clients a year. This one's special, building it for himself and his fiancée." Warren's stomach twisted. "Fiancée?" "Yeah, keeping it quiet until her divorce is finalized, for what I hear." Walt lowered his voice conspiratorially. "Apparently the husband's loaded but clueless. They're using his money to build this place." Warren managed a strained smile. "Interesting approach to financing. Mr. Chambers has always been creative that way. Used to work with the lady's father until they had a bigger vision." Walt gestured proudly at the structure. "This place will be a showstopper when it's done. Indoor pool, wine cellar, home theater, no expense spared." "When's completion scheduled?" Warren asked, struggling to keep his voice casual. 6 months, give or take. They're planning quite the housewarming party." Warren thanked Walt for his time and returned to his truck, his mind working furiously. 6 months. That was their timeline for dismantling his life. Back home, Warren began research. Dorian Chambers had a website showcasing his luxury home designs, with testimonials from wealthy clients. His About page mentioned his background in structural engineering and his partnership with TC Financial Consulting for client financing solutions, clearly Ted Cole's involvement. A search of county records revealed that the Westfield property had been purchased 8 months ago by Phoenix Rising LLC. Further digging showed this company was registered to Theodore Cole, with Vivian Cole and Dorian Chambers listed as officers. The pieces were falling into place. The gambling debts Harold had mentioned were likely real, but rather than seeking help, Ted had found a partner in Dorian Chambers. Together, they were orchestrating an elaborate scheme that now included Bridget and, unwittingly, Warren himself. Warren needed more information before confronting anyone. He called his old friend Jack Harlow, who now worked for the local bank. "Jack, I need a favor," Warren said after exchanging pleasantries. "It's sensitive." "Shoot," Jack replied. "There's a property development in Westfield under Phoenix Rising LLC. I'm considering an investment, but something feels off. Can you look into any loans or transactions?" Jack hesitated. "That's pushing some boundaries, Warren. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Someone close to me might be getting scammed." After a long pause, Jack agreed. "Give me a day or two." "But you didn't hear anything from me." 2 days later, Jack called back. "Warren, you need to be careful here. Phoenix Rising has taken out a substantial construction loan using collateral I can't quite trace. There's a personal guarantee involved that seems to have your name on it." Warren's blood ran cold. "My name? How is that possible?" "I don't know, but someone's signature is on these documents." "If it wasn't you, then someone forged my signature," Warren finished. "Can you send me copies?" "Already heading to your email, through my personal account." "Warren, whatever you're mixed up in, tread carefully." Warren thanked him and hung up, opening his email with dread. The documents confirmed his worst fears. His signature appeared on loan guarantees he'd never seen before, putting him on the hook for over $2 million. The paperwork had apparently been notarized by a Judith Wilkins, a name Warren didn't recognize. A quick search revealed that Judith Wilkins worked as a notary at Silverman & Cohen, Bridget's law firm. The betrayal was more extensive than Warren had imagined. Not only was his wife planning to leave him for Dorian Chambers, but she had forged his signature to financially ruin him in the process. They weren't just stealing his house. They were stealing his identity, his credit, and potentially his future. That evening, when Bridget broached the subject of the house valuation again, Warren agreed readily. "You're right," he said, forcing a smile. "It's time to move forward. Let's get the valuation and list the house." Bridget's surprise quickly gave way to triumph, poorly disguised as gratitude. "I'm so glad you're seeing things clearly now," she said, embracing him. "My parents will be so relieved." Warren returned the embrace, wondering if she could feel how stiffly he held her. "I want what's best for everyone," he said, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. What Bridget didn't know was that Warren had already begun laying the groundwork for his counterattack. That afternoon, he had visited an attorney specializing in fraud cases, bringing copies of the forged documents. He had opened a new bank account at a different bank, and he had reached out to an old client who worked for the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. As Warren held his wife, this stranger who had shared his bed for 15 years, he made a silent promise to himself. He would not be the victim in this story. He would dismantle their scheme piece by piece, and when the moment was right, he would bring their house of cards crashing down around them. Chapter 3. Hidden Chambers. The house went on the market faster than Warren anticipated. Bridget had clearly been preparing for weeks, lining up a realtor who specialized in quick sales. Louise Dawson, a sleek woman with a perpetual Bluetooth earpiece, arrived with professional photographers the day after their conversation. "You've maintained this property beautifully," Louise commented as she walked through the rooms Warren had painstakingly renovated over the years. "It should move quickly." "That's what we're hoping for," Bridget replied, shooting Warren a warning glance when he remained silent. Warren played his part, answering questions about the roof age and HVAC system while mentally cataloging everything he would miss. the bay window where he read the Sunday paper, the kitchen island where the family had shared countless meals, the slight creak in the third stair that had alerted him to teenage sneaking attempts. 3 days later, they had 4 offers, all above asking price. Bridget pushed for accepting the highest bid, which came with a request for shortened closing period. 30 days is awfully quick, Warren observed during their discussion with Louise. It's a motivated buyer, Louise explained. A cash offer like this doesn't come along every day. Warren glanced at the buyer's name. Phoenix Acquisitions, LLC. Not quite Phoenix Rising, but close enough to raise his suspicions. He signed the acceptance papers without comment, watching as Bridget's signature flowed across the page with practiced ease. The same ease, he imagined, with which he had forged his name on those loan documents. Meanwhile, Warren's covert investigation continued. His friend at the FBI, Special Agent Dwayne Cooper, had taken a keen interest in the case. Identity theft, forgery, financial fraud, possibly criminal conspiracy, Dwayne enumerated during their meeting at a coffee shop far from Warren's usual haunts. But we need more evidence to build a solid case. What kind of evidence? Warren asked. Bank records showing the flow of funds. Communications between the parties. Proof that your signature was forged without your knowledge or consent. Warren slid a USB drive across the table. I've got the forged documents and proof they're using a shell company to buy my house. Dwayne pocketed the drive. Good start. But we need to establish their intent and the connections between all parties involved. Your father-in-law, his business partner, this contractor, your wife. We need to show they were working together. How do I get that kind of evidence without tipping them off? Dwayne considered this. You said the closing is in 30 days. Use that time. Play along. Act like everything's normal while documenting everything. Warren nodded, though the thought of continuing the charade for a month made his stomach churn. And Warren, Dwayne added, his expression serious. Be careful. People cornered into financial crimes can be unpredictable. Back home, Warren found Bridget browsing real estate listings for smaller homes. Found a few promising options, she said, not looking up from her tablet. 2-bedroom condos mostly. Low maintenance. The casual way she dismissed their future sent a spike of anger through Warren. 15 years of marriage reduced to low maintenance. What about your parents? He asked, keeping his voice neutral. Any properties that might work for them? Bridget's fingers hesitated over the screen. They're looking at assisted living facilities. Something with medical staff on site for Dad. Another lie. Warren wondered if she even kept track of them anymore. Makes sense, he replied, although Ted seemed pretty spry at dinner the other night. Bridget's expression hardened momentarily before smoothing into a smile. Good days and bad days with his condition. You know how it is. Warren didn't know. He was having his own good days and bad days navigating the wreckage of his marriage. Over the next 2 weeks, Warren maintained his facade while gathering evidence. He installed a keystroke logger on the family computer, gaining access to Bridget's email accounts. He placed a small recording device in her car. He photographed mail addressed to Phoenix Rising LLC that Bridget carelessly left on the counter. The picture that emerged was more disturbing than Warren had anticipated. Ted Cole had indeed had a gambling problem, losing nearly $200,000 to online poker and sports betting. Rather than seeking help, he had partnered with Dorian Chambers, who had worked briefly as a consultant for Cole Accounting. Together, they had devised a scheme to use Ted's client relationships to secure loans for phantom development projects, skimming funds before the projects inevitably failed. When several clients threatened legal action, they needed a new source of capital, and Bridget had suggested her husband. The affair between Bridget and Dorian had begun around the same time. Warren found emails dating back 18 months, revealing a calculated seduction on Dorian's part. What had started as flirtation had evolved into conspiracy, with Bridget willingly offering up her marriage, her husband's assets, and ultimately, his identity to fuel their plans. The most damning evidence came from a recorded conversation in Bridget's car 3 weeks after the house went on the market. Warren's being suspiciously cooperative. Bridget's voice said clearly on the recording, I expected more resistance. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Dorian replied. Once the house closes, we'll have the cash flow we need for phase 2. And what about the loan guarantees? When the bank realizes he didn't sign them. By then, the assets will be protected in the offshore accounts. Let him try to prove fraud with no paper trail. Besides, his contracting business is incorporated separately, right? Worst case, he files personal bankruptcy. Bridget's laugh sent chills down Warren's spine. Poor Warren, always so trusting. Hey, you're the one who married a Boy Scout, Dorian replied. A mistake I'm rectifying, Bridget said. Besides, he's getting boring in his middle age. Always talking about building things that last. So traditional. Well, we're building something too, Dorian said. Our future. Speaking of which, I updated the master suite plans. Wait until you see the bathroom I designed. Marble everywhere. Warren stopped the recording, his hands shaking with rage. Not only were they stealing from him, but they were mocking him in the process. The life he'd built, the values he held dear, all were jokes to them. He took the evidence to Dwayne the next day. This is good, Dwayne said after reviewing everything. We can move on this after the house closing, when the money changes hands. That will complete the paper trail. I don't want to wait, Warren argued. They're living in my house, spending my money, planning their future together. I understand how you feel, Dwayne said. But timing is crucial here. We need to catch them in the act of committing financial fraud. The forgery alone might not be enough for serious charges. Warren reluctantly agreed, though the wait was excruciating. He rented a storage unit and began secretly moving personal items he couldn't bear to lose. Family photos, his father's tools, heirlooms meant for Zach and Lily. He told the kids a partial truth, that he and their mother were downsizing, but leaving most details vague. Neither child suspected the storm brewing beneath the surface. As closing day approached, Warren noticed increased activity among the conspirators. Ted and Vivian visited more frequently. Dorian called Bridget multiple times daily. Warren maintained his cooperative facade, signing paperwork as requested, attending meetings with the title company, emptying their joint accounts into the new one that would receive the house proceeds. The night before closing, Bridget suggested celebrating. We should go out to dinner tomorrow after the closing, she said as they prepared for bed. Mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Warren studied his wife's face, searching for any sign of remorse or hesitation. There was none. Sure, he agreed. A new beginning. Bridget smiled, reaching for him in a rare display of affection. I'm glad you're being so understanding about all this. If for the best, really. Warren returned her embrace mechanically, thinking of the evidence safely delivered to the FBI, the plans set in motion, the reckoning to come. Everything happens for a reason, he replied. The next morning, they met at the title company office. Ted and Vivian were there, along with Louise the realtor and representatives from the buyer, a lawyer Warren didn't recognize, but no sign of Dorian himself. The closing proceeded smoothly. Warren signed, where directed, watching as nearly 15 years of equity converted into a cashier's check made out to both him and Bridget. They would deposit it together before the celebration dinner. Congratulations, the title agent said as she handed over the keys to the lawyer. And best of luck with your downsizing. Outside in the parking lot, Bridget hugged her parents, who appeared teary-eyed with gratitude. Warren shook Ted's hand, holding it perhaps a moment too long. I hope this helps with your medical expenses, Warren said pointedly. Ted couldn't meet his eyes. More than you know. We can't thank you enough. No need for thanks, Warren replied. Family helps family, right? As Ted and Vivian drove away, Bridget turned to Warren with a genuine smile, the first he'd seen in months. Let's go deposit this check and celebrate. I made reservations at Pietro's for 7 o'clock. Warren nodded, checking his watch. I need to stop by the office first. Some paperwork for the Johnson project. Why don't I meet you at the restaurant? Bridget hesitated, clearly reluctant to let the check out of her sight. We should deposit this first. It's made out to both of us, Warren pointed out. We both need to be there to deposit it. Let's do it right before dinner. After a moment's calculation, Bridget agreed. Don't be late. I'll have the check. Warren watched her drive away, knowing she was heading straight to Dorian to share the news. The check was just a symbol, The real prize was already in motion. The house sale proceeds would be wired to the account in both their names, then promptly transferred elsewhere according to their plan. But Warren had plans of his own. He called Dwayne as soon as Bridget's car disappeared from view. "It's done," he said simply. "They'll all be at Pietro's restaurant at 7 o'clock to celebrate. The money should hit the account within hours." "We'll be ready," Dwayne promised. "Are you sure you want to be there when it goes down? It could get messy." Warren thought about the recorded conversation, about Bridget's laughter at his expense, about the future they had planned to build on the ruins of his life. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," he replied. As he hung up, Warren felt a strange calm settle over him. For weeks, he had been playing defense, reacting to their schemes. Tonight, he would reclaim the narrative. Tonight, he would show them what happened when you built your dreams on someone else's foundation. Chapter 4. Blueprints of Betrayal. Pietro's was the kind of upscale Italian restaurant where the staff knew your name if you were a regular, which Dorian Chambers certainly was. Warren arrived 15 minutes early, watching from his truck as Bridget pulled up in her Audi, followed almost immediately by Dorian's Range Rover. They didn't embrace in the parking lot, maintaining a public facade of separation, but Warren noted how they entered just seconds apart. 5 minutes later, Ted and Vivian arrived, looking celebratory rather than ill and desperate. Warren waited until they were all inside before texting Dwayne to confirm their presence. Then he straightened his tie, checked his reflection in the rearview mirror, and prepared to attend his own execution. The maitre d' led Warren to a round table in a semi-private alcove where the 4 conspirators were already sipping champagne. Dorian, introduced smoothly as a family friend and financial advisor, sat between Bridget and Vivian, while Ted occupied the chair beside his wife. They had left Warren the seat furthest from Bridget, a small but telling detail. "There he is," Ted called with forced joviality. "The man of the hour." Warren shook hands all around, including with Dorian, who met his gaze with the confidence of someone who believed they'd already won. "Dorian Chambers," he introduced himself, his grip firm. "I've heard so much about you." "Funny," Warren replied evenly. "I haven't heard much about you at all." An awkward silence fell, broken by Bridget's too bright laugh. "Warren's just being modest. I've mentioned Dorian's financial advice many times." Warren accepted a glass of champagne, noting it was already poured, waiting for him. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. The others echoed the toast enthusiastically, unaware of the FBI agents positioning themselves throughout the restaurant, or the fact that Warren had switched his champagne glass with Dorian's when shaking his hand, a sleight-of-hand trick Warren had learned from his grandfather, an amateur magician. As appetizers were served, the conversation flowed with artificial ease. Ted expounded on promising new treatments. Vivian detailed the assisted living facility they were considering. Dorian offered investment advice for the house proceeds. Bridget touched Warren's arm occasionally, playing the role of supportive wife. Warren ate little, his stomach tight with anticipation. He checked his watch surreptitiously. The bank transfer would have completed by now. The trap was baited. "Before the main course arrives," Warren said, setting down his napkin, "I'd like to propose another toast." He reached into his jacket pocket and removed a small velvet box, placing it in front of Bridget. Her eyes widened in confusion. "What's this?" she asked, a hint of wariness in her voice. "Open it," Warren urged. "Consider it a parting gift." All eyes were on Bridget as she hesitantly opened the box. Inside was a small silver key. "I don't understand," she said, looking from the key to Warren. "It's a safe deposit box key," Warren explained, his voice carrying just enough to be heard at nearby tables. "I thought you might need somewhere secure to keep certain documents. Letters between you and Dorian, for instance. Or perhaps copies of loan applications with my forged signature." The color drained from Bridget's face. Dorian's hand froze halfway to his wine glass. Ted made a small choking sound. "Warren, what are you talking about?" Bridget attempted recovery, looking around nervously at the other diners. "I'm talking about Phoenix Rising LLC," Warren continued calmly. "I'm talking about the mansion being built in Westfield with my money." I'm talking about the elaborate fraud you've all been perpetrating for months, years, in Ted's case. Lower your voice, Dorian hissed, leaning forward menacingly. Warren smiled. Why? Afraid someone might hear how you seduced my wife to gain access to my assets? Or how Ted here gambled away his client's money before targeting his own son-in-law? You're making a scene, Vivian warned, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the tablecloth. No, Warren corrected her. I'm exposing one. A scene would be something more dramatic. Like this. He stood suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Conversations around them died as he raised his voice. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. My name is Warren Blackwood. Today, I sold my family home, the home where I raised my children, because my wife told me her father was dying of cancer and needed financial help. Bridget grabbed his arm. Warren, stop this right now. Warren gently removed her hand. But as it turns out, there was no financial crisis. The money is being funneled into a luxury mansion for my wife and her lover, this man right here. He gestured to Dorian, who was now standing as well, his face contorted with rage. You're drunk, Dorian announced loudly. And delusional. Security. I'm neither, Warren replied. And I can prove it. He pulled out his phone and played the recording of Bridget and Dorian's conversation, their voices filling the now silent restaurant. Bridget's mocking laughter. Dorian's casual dismissal of Warren's financial ruin. Their excited discussion of marble bathrooms built with stolen money. When the recording ended, Warren looked directly at Dorian. You know what the worst part is? I could have forgiven the affair. People fall in and out of love. But you didn't just want my wife. You wanted to destroy me in the process. This is illegal, Dorian sputtered. You can't record private conversations. Actually, Connecticut is a one-party consent state, came a new voice as Dwayne approached the table, badge in hand, which makes the recording perfectly admissible, along with the other evidence Mr. Blackwood has provided. Two more agents appear behind him. The restaurant had gone completely silent, every diner riveted by the unfolding drama. Dorian Chambers, Theodore Cole, Vivian Cole, Bridget Blackwood. Dwayne recited formally. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, and financial exploitation. As the agents moved in, Dorian lunged suddenly, knocking over the table in his desperate bid to escape. Plates and glasses crashed to the floor. A waiter yelped and jumped back. In the chaos, Bridget grabbed her purse and sprinted toward the kitchen. Warren calmly stepped aside, watching as one agent tackled Dorian while another pursued Bridget. Ted sank into his chair, head in his hands, while Vivian shrieked about her rights being violated. You've ruined everything, Ted murmured as an agent handcuffed him. 15 years of friendship, and you do this to us? Warren leaned close. Friendship? You were planning to bankrupt me, Ted. What kind of friend does that? We would have taken care of you, Ted insisted. Given you something for your trouble. I don't want your charity, Warren replied. I want justice. As the conspirators were led away, the restaurant manager approached Warren, clearly distressed by the disruption. Sir, I don't know what to say. This is unprecedented. Warren pulled out his wallet and extracted several large bills. For the damages and the disturbance. The rest is for the staff. I apologize for turning your establishment into a crime scene. The manager accepted the money with a dazed nod. Will you be staying for your entree? Warren smiled ruefully. I think I've lost my appetite, but I would appreciate a drink at the bar. It's been a long day. As Warren settled onto a bar stool, his phone buzzed with a text from Dwayne. All four in custody. Bridget tried to flush evidence, but we recovered it. Transfer to offshore account stopped. Your money is safe. Warren ordered a whiskey, neat, and raised it in a silent toast to his empty house, his fractured family, and the uncertain future that awaited him. He had won, but victory tasted more bitter than sweet. The bartender, sensing Warren's mood, kept his distance except to refresh his drink. After the third whiskey, Warren felt a presence beside him and turned to find an elegant woman in her 40s taking the adjacent stool. That was quite a performance, she said, ordering a martini without looking at the bartender. Very dramatic. Warren studied her. Dark hair with subtle silver streaks. Sharp, intelligent eyes. A no-nonsense demeanor that suggested she wasn't easily impressed. Not a performance, he corrected. Just the truth coming to light. I'm Gloria Preston, she said, offering her hand. I couldn't help overhearing. You're in construction? Warren shook her hand, noting her firm grip. Warren Blackwood. And yes, I'm a contractor. Or was. Not sure what I am now. Gloria sipped her martini thoughtfully. I'm an assistant district attorney. Financial Crimes Division. Warren tensed. Am I in some kind of trouble? Quite the opposite, she replied. The FBI may have made the arrests, but my office will prosecute the case. I'd like to talk to you about your evidence. Warren relaxed slightly. I've given everything to Agent Cooper. Official channels, Gloria agreed. But I find personal conversations more illuminating. For instance, I'd be curious to know how you discovered the fraud, how long you played along, what motivated you to expose them publicly rather than quietly. Warren considered her for a moment. There was something refreshingly direct about Gloria Preston. No pretense, no hidden agenda. That's a long story, he warned. Gloria, check her watch. I have time. And you look like someone who needs to talk more than they need another whiskey. Warren smiled for the first time that evening. Fair assessment. Where should I start? The beginning usually works, Gloria replied, turning fully toward him. When did you first suspect something was wrong? As Warren recounted the events of the past months, he felt some of the tension leaving his body. Gloria asked incisive questions, occasionally making notes on her phone, but mostly just listening intently. You showed remarkable restraint, she observed when he finished. Most people would have confronted their spouse immediately. I needed to understand the full scope, Warren explained. And I needed evidence that would stand up in court. Gloria nodded appreciatively. Smart. Many cases fall apart because victims act emotionally rather than strategically. I'm still not sure the strategic approach was worth it, Warren admitted. I've lost my wife, alienated my in-laws, and I'm essentially homeless at the moment. But you preserved your financial future and your dignity, Gloria pointed out. And for what you've told me, those relationships were already lost. You just didn't know it yet. Warren considered this. I suppose that's true. Gloria finished her martini and stood, placing her card on the bar. Call my office tomorrow. We'll need a formal statement. And Warren, she added, her expression softening slightly. For what it's worth, I think you handled an impossible situation with remarkable grace. After Gloria departed, Warren settled his tab and stepped out into the cool evening air. He had a hotel reservation waiting, the first of many nights away from home, but he wasn't quite ready to face the empty room. Instead, he drove to his house, former house now, and parked across the street. The windows were dark, the property silent. Tomorrow, the new owners would take possession, unaware of the drama surrounding their purchase. Warren sat there for nearly an hour, saying goodbye to the life he had built and lost. Then he started his truck and drove away, leaving the past behind and moving toward whatever future awaited him. A future that, for better or worse, he would build on his own terms. Chapter 5. Stress Fractures. The weeks following the arrest passed in a blur of legal meetings, paperwork, and uncomfortable conversations. Warren moved into a modest apartment downtown, furnishing it sparsely with items from his storage unit and a few new purchases. The space felt temporary, a way station rather than a home, but served its purpose. The criminal case against the conspirators moved forward with surprising speed, largely due to Gloria Preston's aggressive prosecution strategy. The evidence Warren had gathered, combined with financial records subpoenaed from multiple banks, painted a damning picture of a years-long fraud scheme. Ted Cole, facing the most serious charges due to his professional position as an accountant, was the first to crack. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he provided detailed testimony about the origins of the fraud, the manipulation of client funds, and Dorian's role as the architect of the larger scheme. Vivian maintained her innocence, claiming she had merely followed her husband's lead without understanding the criminal nature of their actions. Bank records told a different story, showing her active management of the offshore accounts where they had planned to hide the stolen funds. Dorian Chambers remained defiant, hiring a high-powered defense attorney and refusing plea offers. His construction company was placed in receivership, all projects halted pending the outcome of the case. Bridget's reaction was the most unexpected. Rather than turning on her co-conspirators, she withdrew completely, refusing to speak even to her court-appointed attorney. When Warren finally saw her at a preliminary hearing, he barely recognized the hollow-eyed woman who had once been his wife. The legal proceedings weren't Warren's only challenge. News of the scandal had spread quickly through Oak Ridge, fueled by the dramatic restaurant arrest and subsequent media coverage. Local contractor uncovers family fraud ring, read one headline. House of Lies, builder's wife plots his financial ruin, proclaimed another. Warren's business suffered initially as clients worried about association with the scandal, but an unexpected champion emerged in Harold Moss, Ted's former business partner. Ted nearly destroyed my reputation along with his own, Harold explained when he approached Warren about handling the renovation of his accounting office. The least I can do is show the community that Blackwood Construction stands on its own merit. Harold's public support opened doors that had been closing, and gradually, Warren's professional life stabilized. His personal life, however, remained in disarray. The children were another painful complication. Zach and Lily had returned from college to find their family shattered, their childhood home sold, and their mother facing criminal charges. Their initial shock and disbelief had given way to anger, some directed at Bridget and the Coles, but much of it landing squarely on Warren. "Why didn't you tell us what was happening?" Lily demanded during a tense dinner at Warren's apartment. At 19, she had her mother's copper hair, but her father's straightforward nature. "We had to find out from the news, Dad." "The news? I was trying to protect you," Warren explained, pushing pasta around his plate. "You were both focused on school. I didn't want to disrupt that." "Protect us?" Zach scoffed. He was 21 now, lanky and intense like his father had been at that age. "By letting us walk into a minefield blindfolded? People at school are talking about us. Professors who know Mom from her paralegal work are asking me questions I can't answer." "I'm sorry," Warren said, meaning it. "I handled this badly where you two are concerned. I was so focused on stopping the fraud that I didn't think about how the fallout would affect you." Lily's expression softened slightly. "Is it true? About Mom and this Dorian guy?" Warren nodded reluctantly. "Yes, they've been involved for a while. And Grandpa and Grandma?" Zach pressed. "They were in on it too?" "They were," Warren confirmed. "Your grandfather had gambling debts. Instead of getting help, he partnered with Dorian to defraud his clients. When that wasn't enough, they targeted our family assets." "Is Grandpa really sick?" Lily asked in a small voice. Warren hesitated. "He has early-stage prostate cancer. Very treatable, not life-threatening. They exaggerated his condition to convince me to sell the house." Zach pushed away from the table abruptly. "This is so messed up. Our entire family was just fake." "Not fake," Warren insisted. "Your mom and I had good years, many of them. You kids were never part of any deception. You are the best things in my life." Lily wiped away tears. "Have you talked to Mom?" "Since the arrest. She won't see me," Warren admitted. "Her lawyer says she's not speaking to anyone." "We visited her last week," Zach said, watching for his father's reaction. "She seems broken." Warren absorbed this with a nod. Despite everything, he couldn't take satisfaction in Bridget's suffering. 15 years of marriage didn't disappear overnight, even after betrayal. "How are you handling the money situation?" Lily asked, changing the subject. "I mean, with the house sale, funds frozen." "I'm okay," Warren assured them. "The FBI stopped the offshore transfer in time. The court has released some funds to me while they sort out the rest. And work is picking up again." After dinner, as Warren walked them to their cars, Zach lingered behind while Lily got into her vehicle. "Dad," he said awkwardly, "I've been thinking about the summer internship at your company. Is that still an option?" Warren felt a surge of emotion he couldn't quite name. "Absolutely. I'd love to have you on board." Zach nodded, relief evident in his posture. "Good, because I kind of already told my advisor I had it lined up." Warren smiled. "It's yours. Always has been." As he watched his children drive away, Warren felt the first real hope since the ordeal began. They were angry and hurt, but they were still his kids. That foundation at least, remained solid. The next morning, Warren received an unexpected visitor at his office, Gloria Preston. "Counselor," he greeted her, offering a chair across from his cluttered desk. "What brings the DA's office to my humble workspace?" Gloria settled into the chair, setting her briefcase beside her. "Several developments in your case. Some you like, some you won't." Warren braced himself. "Start with the bad news. Your wife is claiming diminished capacity," Gloria said without preamble. "Her new attorney, quite an expensive one, I might add, has filed for a psychiatric evaluation." Warren frowned. "Diminished capacity?" She methodically planned this for months. "Years, possibly." "That's our position as well," Gloria assured him. "But it's a standard defense tactic. Claim emotional manipulation by a dominant partner. In this case, Dorian. And the good news? Gloria allowed herself a small smile. Dorian's other projects are unraveling. Once we started looking, we found a pattern of fraud going back a decade. Former clients are coming forward. Banks are freezing assets. He's facing additional charges in 3 counties. Warren nodded, processing this information. "What does that mean for my case?" "It strengthens our position considerably," Gloria explained. "It's no longer just your word against theirs. There's an established pattern of behavior. And my house? The sale proceeds? That's more complicated," Gloria admitted. "The title has transferred to Phoenix Acquisitions. The court has frozen the funds from the sale, but unwinding the transaction entirely would be difficult." Warren leaned back in his chair, feeling the familiar weight of uncertainty. "So even after everything, I've still lost my home." "Potentially," Gloria acknowledged. "But there's another angle we're pursuing. The mansion in Westfield, it's essentially being built with proceeds of fraud. We're filing for asset forfeiture." Warren blinked in surprise. "You mean the government would seize it, eventually sell it, with proceeds going to victims of the fraud, including you?" Gloria confirmed. "It's not a guaranteed outcome, but it's a possibility." Warren considered this irony. The very house meant to celebrate his financial destruction might ultimately provide his restitution. "I appreciate your work on this, Counselor," he said sincerely. Gloria studied him for a moment. "You're handling this better than most victims I've worked with. What choice do I have?" Warren shrugged. "Falling apart won't get my house back or undo the betrayal." "Still," Gloria persisted, "it's remarkable. Most people in your position would be consumed by bitterness." Warren thought about this. "Don't get me wrong, I have my moments, but I've spent my career building things. I know that sometimes you have to clear away the damaged structure before you can rebuild something stronger." Gloria's professional demeanor softened slightly. "A constructive philosophy, Mr. Blackwood." "Warren," he corrected her. "After all we've been through, I think first names are appropriate." "Warren," she repeated, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. "In that case, I'm Gloria." Their conversation was interrupted by Warren's office phone. He excused himself to answer it, listening intently before his expression darkened. "When did this happen?" he asked the caller. "Yes, I understand. I'll be right there." He hung up and turned to Gloria. "That was the prosecutor's office. There's been a development with Dorian. He's claiming I threatened him prior to the arrest. Some nonsense about me warning him I'd destroy his reputation, even if it meant fabricating evidence." Gloria frowned. Classic Darvo. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. He's trying to paint you as the vindictive party. "There's more," Warren said grimly. "The prosecutor said Dorian has a witness who claims I've had a grudge against him for years. Someone who's willing to testify that I concocted this whole fraud story as revenge." "Who's the witness?" Gloria asked. Warren met her eyes. "My wife." Gloria's expression hardened. "Bridget's cooperating with Dorian now? What happened to her diminished capacity claim?" "Apparently she's had a miraculous recovery," Warren replied bitterly. "The prosecutor wants me to come in to discuss this new development." "I'm coming with you," Gloria said firmly, standing and collecting her briefcase. "This changes things. If they're coordinating their defense, we need to adjust our strategy." As they walked to the parking lot, Warren felt the ground shifting beneath him once again. Just when he thought he had contained the damage, new cracks were forming in the case he'd built so carefully. "They're desperate," Gloria reassured him as they reached their vehicles. These are the tactics of people who know the evidence is stacked against them. Warren nodded, trying to believe her. I just want this to be over. To move on with whatever's left of my life. It will be, Gloria promised. Justice may be slow, but in cases with evidence this solid, it usually prevails. As Warren followed Gloria's car downtown, he wondered what form that justice would ultimately take, and whether any outcome could truly repair the foundation that had been so thoroughly broken. Chapter 6. Pressure Tests. The prosecutorial meeting revealed a more coordinated defense strategy than Warren had anticipated. Dorian's high-priced attorney, Clayton Reynolds, had apparently brokered a deal with Bridget's new counsel. In exchange for her testimony supporting Dorian's claim of persecution by Warren, Dorian would provide financial support for her defense and potentially character testimony suggesting she had been manipulated. It's a cynical strategy, the lead prosecutor, Thomas Wilson, explained as Warren and Gloria sat in his office. They know the financial evidence is damning, so they're trying to attack the messenger. Bridget's claiming I was emotionally abusive? Warren asked incredulously, reviewing the statement in front of him. That I was pathologically jealous and fabricated the affair to punish her for wanting to help her parents? Classic gaslighting, Gloria noted. Make the victim question their own reality. Thomas nodded grimly. Reynolds is good at creating reasonable doubt. He only needs to convince one juror that you might have misinterpreted events or had your own agenda. The recordings, Warren pointed out. The forged documents. The money trail. How do they explain all that? They're suggesting the recordings were selectively edited, Thomas replied. As for the documents, Bridget is now claiming you were aware of the signatures, but are pretending otherwise to frame them. Warren felt a surge of anger. That's absurd. I gave the FBI the original documents with the forged signatures before they were executed, which is why we're not overly concerned, Thomas assured him. But we wanted you to be prepared. This could get ugly. Reynolds has investigators digging into your past, looking for anything they can use to discredit you. Gloria placed a hand on Warren's arm. Is there anything they might find? Now's the time to tell us. Warren considered the question seriously. I've had some business setbacks over the years. A project that went over budget, a dispute with a supplier that ended in arbitration. Nothing criminal or unethical. What about personal issues? Thomas pressed. Former relationships, substance abuse, financial problems? Warren shook his head. I dated a few women before Bridget. Nothing dramatic. No addiction issues. My finances were solid until this situation. Thomas seemed satisfied. Good, because they'll try to paint a very different picture. The meeting concluded with a strategy session for Warren's upcoming grand jury testimony. Though Gloria wasn't officially representing him, she offered valuable insights on how to prepare for the aggressive questioning he would likely face. As they left the prosecutor's office, Gloria suggested lunch at a nearby cafe. You look like you could use a break, she observed. And I have more information that wasn't appropriate to share in Thomas's office. Over sandwiches at a quiet corner table, Gloria revealed what her investigative team had uncovered about Dorian Chambers. He's done this before, she said, keeping her voice low. Not the exact same scheme, but variations on the theme. He finds vulnerable people with assets, gains their trust, then uses their resources to fund his projects while leaving them with the debt. And he gets away with it? Warren asked. Usually, Gloria admitted. He's careful to operate in gray areas, manipulating people into making poor financial decisions rather than committing outright theft. Most victims are too embarrassed to pursue charges. So, I'm the first to fight back? Gloria nodded. The first to gather comprehensive evidence before confronting him. The first to involve law enforcement from the start. That's why he's fighting so hard. You've broken his pattern. Warren absorbed this. And his connection to Ted? How did that start? Ted was likely an earlier victim who decided to become an accomplice instead, Gloria explained. We found evidence that Dorian helped him cover up embezzlement from his own firm about 3 years ago. In return, Ted started referring clients to Dorian's investment opportunities. And Bridget? Was she part of it from the beginning? This was the question that haunted Warren most. How long had his wife been plotting against him? Gloria hesitated. The evidence suggests she was brought in later. The affair appears to have started about 18 months ago, around the time Dorian was looking to expand his operations. So she wasn't the mastermind, Warren said, unsure whether this made things better or worse. Just a willing participant once the opportunity presented itself. It appears that way, Gloria confirmed. Though her recent defense strategy suggests she's more calculating than she initially appeared. Warren pushed his half-eaten sandwich away, appetite gone. I still don't understand how someone I spent 15 years with could do this. There were problems in our marriage, sure, but nothing that justified this level of betrayal. Gloria regarded him thoughtfully. In my experience, this kind of behavior rarely comes out of nowhere. Were there earlier signs? Financial decisions she made that seemed questionable? Friends or activities she kept separate from you? Warren considered this. She was always a bit secretive about money, maintained her own accounts even after we married. I respected her independence, didn't think much of it. And her relationship with her parents? Very close, especially with her father. Ted was always the perfect dad in her eyes. She'd defend him even when he was clearly in the wrong. Warren paused, remembering incidents that had seemed insignificant at the time. There was a situation a few years ago, a client of Ted's who accused him of mismanaging funds. Bridget was furious, insisted the client was lying even though Ted eventually settled the case. Gloria nodded. Family loyalty is powerful. Some people can't see clearly when it comes to their parents. But to destroy her own marriage, risk her relationship with her children? Warren shook his head. I still can't make sense of it. Some people rationalize betrayal by first convincing themselves they've been wronged, Gloria suggested. It's possible Bridget created a narrative where you were somehow the villain long before any of this happened. The conversation was interrupted by Gloria's phone. She checked the message, her expression turning serious. We need to go, she said, signaling for the check. There's been a development at the Westfield property. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the construction site of what would have been Dorian and Bridget's mansion. Police cars and fire trucks lined the street, their lights flashing against the darkening afternoon sky. Warren and Gloria approached the police line, where Gloria flashed her credentials to gain access. An officer escorted them to a fire marshal standing near the partially constructed house. What happened? Gloria asked. Arson, the marshal replied grimly. Professional job. Accelerant throughout the structure. Timers set to ensure maximum damage. Whole thing went up about 2 hours ago. Warren stared at the smoldering remains of what had been a luxurious home in progress. Blackened beams reached toward the sky like skeletal fingers. The stench of burnt materials hung heavy in the air. Anyone hurt? Warren asked. Site was empty, thankfully, the marshal confirmed. Construction had been halted due to the legal issues. We got security camera footage being reviewed now. Gloria turned to Warren. This complicates things. Destruction of evidence related to an ongoing case. The marshal gave them a sharp look. You think this is connected to the fraud case? The chamber's prosecution? It's certainly convenient timing, Gloria observed. The property itself was likely to be seized as evidence and potentially liquidated to compensate victims. Warren surveyed the destruction, a sickening realization dawning. They'll try to blame me for this. Gloria's expression confirmed his fear. It's a possibility we need to prepare for. His prediction proved accurate sooner than expected. As they stood discussing next steps with the fire marshal, a black SUV pulled up and Clayton Reynolds emerged, accompanied by a videographer and what appeared to be a private investigator. Mr. Blackwood, Reynolds called across the police line, his voice carrying for the benefit of the camera. Quite a coincidence finding you at the scene of this destruction. Care to comment on the timing? Warren started to respond, but Gloria gripped his arm. Say nothing, she advised quietly. Let me handle this. She approached Reynolds with professional courtesy that barely masked her contempt. Counselor, this is an active crime scene. Your theatrics are inappropriate and potentially obstructive. Reynolds smiled for the camera. Just documenting the remarkable coincidence that the man who has expressed such animosity toward my client happens to be present at the destruction of property central to the case. Mr. Blackwood was in a meeting with the district attorney's office until 40 minutes ago, Gloria stated firmly. With multiple witnesses, your insinuations are not only false but potentially defamatory. Reynolds appeared undeterred. And prior to that meeting, his whereabouts are less certain, I imagine. Plenty of time to arrange for hired help. Warren felt his anger rising, but maintained his silence as Gloria had advised. This conversation is over, Gloria declared. If you have actual evidence rather than theatrical accusations, present it to the prosecutor's office through proper channels. As she turned away, Reynolds called after her. The court of public opinion doesn't require the same burden of proof, counselor. Remember that. Back at Gloria's car, Warren finally exploded. That snake. He's already decided to paint me as an arsonist. It's a desperate tactic, Gloria assured him, though her expression was troubled. But we need to be prepared. The timing of this fire is suspicious, and they'll try to use it against you. I was with you all afternoon, Warren pointed out, and in the prosecutor's office before that, which gives you a solid alibi for when the fire actually started, Gloria agreed. But as Reynolds implied, arson can be arranged. Warren ran a hand through his hair in frustration. So now, on top of everything else, I have to prove I didn't burn down the house that was being built with my stolen money? The house I would potentially benefit from an asset forfeiture. It's perverse logic, Gloria acknowledged, but effective in muddying the waters. We need to get ahead of this. She drove Warren back to his office, discussing strategy the entire way. By the time they arrived, she had outlined a plan that included a voluntary interview with arson investigators, documentation of Warren's movements over the past week, and a proactive statement to the prosecutor addressing the likely accusations. Don't engage with the media, she cautioned as Warren got out her car. No matter what they report or how they frame it. Warren nodded, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. This never ends, does it? Just when I think I've contained the damage, something new explodes. Gloria regarded him with unexpected gentleness. That's often how these cases go. The perpetrators fight harder as they get more desperate, but each attack makes them more vulnerable. Warren managed a tired smile. I hope you're right. I'm not sure how much more fight I have left in me. More than you realize, Gloria replied with confidence. You made it this far. Just hold the line a little longer. After Gloria departed, Warren sat in his truck in the office parking lot, too drained to go inside or drive home. His phone buzzed with a text from Zach. Just saw the news about the fire. You okay? Need anything? Warren felt a wave of gratitude for his son's concern. I'm fine, he texted back. Long day. We'll call tomorrow. He was about to put his phone away when it rang. An unknown number. Against his better judgment, Warren answered. Hello. Warren. Bridget's voice was instantly recognizable despite its strained quality. Don't hang up. Please. Warren sat up straighter, heart pounding. Bridget? How are you calling me? I thought you were. In custody, she finished. I was released on bail this morning. Limited phone privileges. Warren, we need to talk. I don't think that's a good idea, he replied carefully. Our lawyers should handle any communication. This isn't about the case, Bridget insisted. It's about the fire. I need to warn you. Despite his resolve, Warren found himself listening. Warn me about what? Dorian is unraveling, Bridget said, her voice dropping to near a whisper. The fire wasn't just about destroying evidence. It's the start of something worse. He blames you for everything, Warren. He's obsessed with making you pay. Are you saying he set the fire himself? Warren asked incredulously. Not himself. He has people, connections I didn't know about until recently. Bridget sounded genuinely frightened. Warren, he's talking about you having an accident. I thought you should know. Warren's mind raced. Was this a genuine warning or another manipulation? Why are you telling me this? You're supporting his defense, claiming I fabricated everything. There was a long pause. It's complicated. My lawyer said it was the best strategy for reducing my sentence. Another pause. I never wanted you physically harmed, Warren. Despite everything. Just financially ruined, Warren couldn't help adding bitterly. I can't explain everything now, Bridget continued, ignoring his comment. But be careful. Don't go to construction sites alone. Don't follow predictable patterns. Dorian knows your habits. Before Warren could respond, she added quickly, I have to go. Remember what I said. The line went dead. Warren sat in stunned silence, replaying the conversation. Was Bridget warning him out of genuine concern, or was this another layer of manipulation, perhaps setting him up to act paranoid and damage his credibility? He considered calling Gloria, but decided against it for now. Without recording the call, he had only his word about what Bridget had said. Better to process this himself before involving others. As dusk settled over the parking lot, Warren finally started his truck and headed toward his apartment. At an intersection, he noticed a black sedan that seemed to be following the same route. Bridget's warning echoed in his mind, sending a chill down his spine. Instead of turning toward his apartment complex, Warren continued straight, making a series of random turns. The sedan stayed with him for 2 more intersections before turning off. Coincidence, perhaps, but Warren wasn't taking chances. He drove an extra 20 minutes before finally approaching his apartment from a different direction, parking in a visitor spot rather than his assigned space. As he climbed the stairs to his unit, Warren felt a new weight settling on his shoulders, the burden of constant vigilance. Inside his apartment, he double-checked the locks, then moved systematically through each room, ensuring windows were secure and nothing appeared disturbed. Only when he was satisfied did he finally pour himself a drink and sink into his sofa, the events of the day crashing over him like waves. His phone buzzed with a text from Gloria. Just heard Bridget made bail. No contact, remember? Warren stared at the message, debating whether to mention the call. After a moment's hesitation, he replied simply, understood. Thanks for the heads up. Setting his phone aside, Warren gazed around the Spartan apartment that was now his home. Everything in his life had been upended. His marriage, his residence, his sense of security. Yet somehow he was still standing. As he sipped his whiskey, Warren made a silent resolution. He would not be driven from the life he had built, would not cower in fear or doubt himself. If Dorian Chambers wanted a war, he would find that Warren Blackwood was not as easily broken as he might have hoped. The foundation of Warren's life had been severely damaged, but the structure remained. And Warren knew better than most that even the most compromised building could be reinforced, stabilized, and made stronger than before, as long as you were willing to do the necessary work. Chapter 7. Load-Bearing Walls. The grand jury proceedings moved forward despite the new complications. Warren testified for nearly 6 hours, walking through the evidence he had gathered. Gloria had prepared him well for the defense attorney's attempts to paint him as vindictive and paranoid, and he maintained his composure even when questioned about the Westfield property fire. No, I did not arrange for the destruction of that property, Warren stated firmly when Clayton Reynolds pushed the theory. I stood to potentially benefit from its seizure and sale. Destroying it would harm my own interests. Yet you were one of the first people at the scene, Reynolds noted with theatrical skepticism. I was with Assistant District Attorney Preston when she received notification of the fire, Warren clarified. We went directly there from a meeting with the lead prosecutor. Reynolds shifted tactics. Let's discuss your wife's claims about your controlling behavior. She states you monitored her communications, restricted her access to family finances, and isolated her from friends and family. Warren maintained his calm. Those claims are false. We maintained separate and joint accounts throughout our marriage. She had her own career, her own friends, and spent considerable time with her parents, as evidenced by her close involvement in their financial schemes. By the end of the day, the grand jury had voted to indict all 4 conspirators on multiple felony counts. Ted and Vivian Cole were charged with conspiracy, wire fraud, and identity theft. Dorian Chambers faced additional charges of racketeering based on evidence from his other fraudulent projects. Bridget was charged with conspiracy, identity theft, and forgery. It was a significant victory, but Warren took little satisfaction from it. The indictments meant a lengthy trial process, more public scrutiny, and continued disruption to his attempts to rebuild his life. As Warren left the courthouse that evening, Gloria fell in a step beside him. You did well in there, she said. Very credible, very measured. Thanks, Warren replied, exhaustion evident in his voice. What happens now? Now the real work begins, Gloria explained. Pre-trial motions, discovery battles, possible plea negotiations. Reynolds will file every delaying tactic he can think of. Warren nodded wearily. How long before this actually goes to trial? 6 to 8 months, realistically, Gloria admitted. Maybe longer. Warren stopped walking. 8 months? I can't put my life on hold that long. Gloria regarded him sympathetically. You don't have to. The case will proceed whether you're watching every minute or not. Focus on rebuilding. Stay available for testimony and evidence authentication, but otherwise, live your life. Easier said than done, Warren replied, especially with the latest development. Gloria frowned. What development? Warren hesitated, then decided Gloria needed to know. Bridget called me yesterday after making bail. Said Dorian is planning something more than legal harassment. Claimed he's talking about me having an accident. Gloria's expression sharpened. You should have told me immediately. Was the call recorded? No, Warren admitted. It came from an unknown number. I wasn't expecting it. This could be serious, or it could be another manipulation tactic, Gloria said thoughtfully. Either way, we need to document it. Come back inside, we'll file a report. After submitting a formal statement about Bridget's call, Warren received a protective order prohibiting any further contact from her. Gloria also arranged for increased patrol near Warren's apartment and workplace. Take reasonable precautions, she advised as they finally left the courthouse. Vary your routes, be aware of your surroundings, report anything suspicious. But don't let fear control your life. Warren nodded, though the warning had already altered his sense of security. Last night's vigilance hadn't been an overreaction. It was his new reality. The next several weeks passed in an uneasy rhythm. Warren focused on rebuilding his business, taking on new projects, and rehiring staff he'd been forced to lay off during the initial scandal. Zach joined the company as planned, showing a natural aptitude for the work that made Warren prouder than he could express. Lily visited on weekends, gradually thawing from her initial anger as she came to understand the full extent of what had happened. She reluctantly admitted to visiting Bridget less frequently as the legal proceedings revealed more details of the conspiracy. It's hard to reconcile the mom I knew with someone who would do these things, she confessed during a Sunday dinner at Warren's apartment. She keeps saying it's all a misunderstanding, that you're twisting everything. Warren chose his words carefully. I can't tell you what to believe, Lily, but the evidence speaks for itself. I know, Lily acknowledged. That's what makes it so difficult. The evidence is pretty damning. Warren's personal life remained largely on hold, though Gloria Preston had become a more frequent presence than strictly required by the case. They occasionally shared meals after legal meetings, their conversations gradually shifting from case details to more personal topics. Warren learned that Gloria was divorced, with a college-age son studying abroad. She had grown up in a working-class family in Pittsburgh, worked her way through law school, and spent 10 years in private practice before joining the district attorney's office. I got tired of helping wealthy people get wealthier, she explained during one dinner. Prosecuting financial crimes lets me fight for people who've been taken advantage of. People like me, Warren observed. Gloria smiled. You're actually quite unusual among victims. Most are so devastated they can barely function, let alone gather evidence and strategize. I had my moments, Warren admitted. Still do, but falling apart wasn't going to solve anything. Their developing friendship provided a welcome counterpoint to the ongoing stress of the case, though Warren was careful to maintain appropriate boundaries given Gloria's professional involvement. For months after the indictments, the first crack appeared in the united defense of the conspirators. Ted Cole, facing the prospect of significant prison time due to his professional position, accepted a plea deal in exchange for comprehensive testimony against the others. Ted flipped, Gloria announced when she called Warren with the news. 15 years with possibility of parole after 7, in exchange for the full story and testimony against Dorian and Vivian. What about Bridget? Warren asked. His testimony implicates her, but he's not required to testify directly against his daughter, Gloria explained. Still, what he's provided corroborates everything you discovered and adds significant details about earlier frauds. Warren processed this development with mixed emotions. So Bridget wasn't mentioned in the plea deal? She gets protection because she's his daughter? Not protection exactly, Gloria clarified. His testimony still damages her case. But he negotiated to avoid being the one to directly testify against her in court. It's not uncommon in family situations. After hanging up, Warren sat at his kitchen table, contemplating this new development. Ted's plea deal increased the pressure on the remaining defendants, potentially accelerating the resolution Warren craved. Yet the family loyalty that allowed Ted to avoid directly condemning his daughter stirred complicated feelings about Warren's own family bonds. His reflections were interrupted by a knock at his door. Cautious since Bridget's warning, Warren checked the peephole before opening the door to find Zach standing there, expression troubled. "Everything okay?" Warren asked, ushering his son inside. Zach paced the small living room before answering. "Mom's lawyer contacted me. They want me to testify about your relationship with Mom, specifically about your controlling behavior and explosive temper." Warren felt as if he'd been punched. "They're trying to get you to testify against me?" "They didn't phrase it that way," Zach replied, dropping onto the sofa. "They said they just want the truth about the family dynamic to come out." Warren fought to keep his voice steady. "What did you tell them?" "That they could go to hell," Zach said flatly. "But Dad, they said if I don't cooperate voluntarily, they'll subpoena me." Warren sat beside his son. "They might, but even under subpoena, you're only required to tell the truth." "I know that," Zach said, "but the truth is complicated, right? I mean, you did have arguments with Mom. You did get frustrated sometimes. Like any married couple," Warren acknowledged. "But I was never abusive or controlling." Zach nodded. "I know that, but they'll twist normal disagreements into something sinister. Make you sound like the bad guy." Warren placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "The evidence of what they did is clear. My occasionally losing my temper during an argument doesn't change that. I just hate being caught in the middle," Zach admitted. "And Lily got the same call. She's really upset." Warren felt a surge of protective anger. Targeting him was one thing. Involving his children was another level entirely. "I'll talk to Gloria," he promised. "See if we can shield you both from this." After Zach left, Warren called Gloria immediately. Her response was measured but concerned. "It's a common tactic," she explained. "Character assassination when the facts aren't in your favor. But involving the children is particularly aggressive. Can we prevent it?" Warren asked. "I'll file motions to limit character testimony to relevant parties," Gloria said. "But I can't guarantee success. The defense can argue that family members have unique insight into behavioral patterns." Warren paced his apartment, frustration building. "So they get to drag my kids into this mess, force them to testify about private family matters? If it comes to that, we'll prepare them thoroughly," Gloria assured him. "But this may be a pressure tactic rather than a genuine strategy. Reynolds knows involving your children would alienate the jury as much as it might help his client." The next day, Warren received another unwelcome surprise. Walking to his truck after a client meeting, he found all 4 tires slashed, with the word liar scratched deeply into the paint of the driver's side door. Warren called the police, then Gloria, photographing the damage while waiting for them to arrive. The responding officer took his report with professional detachment, but Gloria was visibly concerned when she arrived at the scene. "This escalates things," she said, studying the damage. "From legal harassment to physical intimidation. We need to take this seriously." "You think it's connected to Dorian's threats?" Warren asked. "It fits the pattern," Gloria confirmed. "First the legal attacks, then involving your children, now property damage with an explicit message. It's a progression." Warren surveyed his vandalized truck, anger gradually replacing shock. "So what now? I get security cameras, look over my shoulder constantly, hope they don't escalate further." "For starters," Gloria agreed. "But we also use this. Document everything. Add it to our case for witness intimidation." As they discussed next steps, Warren noticed a black sedan driving slowly past. similar to the one he'd spotted after Bridget's warning call. He gestured subtly to Gloria, who noted the vehicle without obvious reaction. "Don't acknowledge that you've seen it," she advised quietly. "But try to get the plate number if it comes back." The sedan circled the block and passed by again. This time, Warren managed to glimpse a partial plate. "That's enough for us to work with," Gloria said when he shared the information. "We'll check traffic cameras in the area, see if we can identify the vehicle." The vandalism incident, while disturbing, provided unexpected momentum to Warren's case. The district attorney's office filed additional charges of witness intimidation against Dorian Chambers based on the pattern of harassment. When the black sedan was identified through traffic cameras and traced to a former employee of Chambers Custom Estates, it strengthened the connection. The pressure increased further when Vivian Cole, following her husband's example, began negotiating her own plea deal. Rather than face trial separately, she offered information about offshore accounts where Dorian had hidden assets from previous frauds. With Ted and Vivian both cooperating, the focus intensified on Dorian and Bridget. Reynolds increased his media campaign, giving interviews portraying his client as the victim of a vengeful husband's campaign to destroy a successful competitor. Mr. Chambers built his business through hard work and innovation, Reynolds told reporters outside the courthouse. Warren Blackwood, unable to compete legitimately, has orchestrated this witch hunt to eliminate a business rival and punish his wife for seeking independence from a controlling relationship. Warren, following Gloria's advice, refused to engage with these accusations publicly. But privately, the constant attacks wore on him. The business he had spent decades building was suffering despite his best efforts, with potential clients hesitant to get involved with someone at the center of such a public scandal. 6 months after the indictments, Warren received an unexpected visitor at his office. His receptionist, Marge, buzzed him on the intercom. "Mr. Blackwood, there's a woman here to see you. Says she used to work for Dorian Chambers. Wouldn't give her name." Warren hesitated, conscious of security concerns. "Did she say what it's about?" "Just that she has information you'd want to hear. Something about evidence." Warren considered his options. Have her wait in the conference room. Call Gloria Preston and ask her to come over if she's available. And Marge, stay within earshot of the conference room. 10 minutes later, Warren entered the conference room to find a woman in her 30s with short dark hair and a nervously professional demeanor. She stood as he entered. "Mr. Blackwood," she greeted him. "Thank you for seeing me. I'm Natalie Reeves. I was Mr. Chambers' office manager for 4 years." Warren maintained a cautious distance. "Ms. Reeves, what can I do for you?" Natalie glanced at the door before answering. "It's more what I can do for you. I have information about Mr. Chambers' activities that wasn't included in the indictment. Information about how he targeted you specifically long before your wife became involved." Warren's interest sharpened, though he kept his expression neutral. "Go on." "Mr. Chambers has a system," Natalie explained. "He identifies potential marks based on their assets and vulnerabilities. Your name was in his target file 2 years before the affair with your wife began." "Target file," Warren repeated. Natalie nodded. "He keeps detailed research on potential victims. Financial records, personal habits, family information. You were flagged because of your property assets and your connection to Theodore Cole through your wife." "You've seen this file?" Warren asked. "I helped compile it," Natalie admitted, a flash of shame crossing her face. "I didn't understand the full purpose at first. By the time I realized what was happening, I was already implicated." "Why are you telling me this now?" Natalie hesitated. "The FBI raided his home office last week, but they didn't find the most damaging records. I know where they are, in a storage unit registered under his mother's maiden name. Files on all his victims, including you." Warren studied her carefully. "If you know about these records, why not go directly to the FBI or the prosecutor's office?" "I have," Natalie replied, "but they need a reason to look for this specific storage unit. Without probable cause, they can't get a warrant. I thought if you requested the search based on my information." The conference room door opened and Gloria entered. Warren made quick introductions before asking Natalie to repeat her story. Gloria listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When Natalie finished, Gloria's expression was thoughtful. This could be significant, she acknowledged. If Chambers was targeting Mr. Blackwood before Mrs. Blackwood's involvement, it undermines their entire narrative. Exactly, Natalie agreed. And there's more. In the storage unit, there's evidence of communication between Mr. Chambers and Theodore Cole going back 3 years, discussing how to access the Blackwood assets. Gloria frowned. Why would you have access to this storage unit? I didn't initially, Natalie explained. But after the arrests, Mr. Chambers needed someone he trusted to move sensitive documents. I was still working for him then, and he believed I was loyal. And why aren't you loyal now? Warren asked directly. Natalie met his gaze. Because I've seen what he does to people who trust him. When things get difficult, he finds scapegoats. With the case building against him, I know I'll be next. Gloria exchanged a look with Warren before addressing Natalie again. We'll need you to make a formal statement. And if this pans out, you'll likely be called to testify. Understand, Natalie replied. I'm prepared for that. After Gloria took Natalie to the district attorney's office to provide her statement, Warren remained in the conference room, processing this new information. If Natalie was telling the truth, Dorian had targeted him long before the affair with Bridget began. The betrayal reached back further than he had imagined. The storage unit proved to be exactly as Natalie had described. FBI agents, armed with a warrant based on her testimony, discovered extensive files on numerous victims, including a thick folder labeled Blackwood Operation. The documents detailed a years-long plan to access Warren's assets through his father-in-law and, later, through his wife. Most damning were emails between Dorian and Ted dating back 3 years, explicitly discussing Warren as a target. His contracting business is solid, Ted had written, but the real value is in his property assets. The family home alone is worth over $1 million in the current market. Dorian's reply was equally incriminating. Access through B might be our best approach. Is she satisfied in her marriage? Any leverage points we could exploit? The discovery of these records dramatically shifted the case dynamics. With evidence that the conspiracy had been in motion years before the events Warren had uncovered, the defense narrative of a vindictive husband crumbled. Reynolds's media campaign faltered as journalists, who had previously given equal time to both sides, now focused on the elaborate targeting operation Chambers had conducted. 3 days after the storage unit discovery, Warren received a call from Gloria. Reynolds has reached out about a potential plea for Dorian. She informed him, excitement barely contained in her professional tone. The new evidence has him spooked. What kind of plea? Warren asked cautiously. 20 years. Eligible for parole after 12, Gloria detailed. Full restitution to all identified victims, including the equity from your house sale. And he provides comprehensive testimony about all co-conspirators. Warren absorbed this, including Bridget, especially Bridget, Gloria confirmed. He's offering to detail how he cultivated the relationship specifically to gain access to your assets. Warren felt a complex wave of emotions. Vindication mixed with renewed pain at the calculated nature of Bridget's betrayal. He's throwing her under the bus to save himself. That's how these cases typically resolve, Gloria acknowledged. The higher-level conspirators offer up the others to reduce their own exposure. After a moment's consideration, Warren asked, what happens to Bridget if he testifies against her? With his testimony and the existing evidence, she's looking at 8 to 10 years, Gloria replied. Unless she also takes a plea. Warren closed his eyes, imagining the mother of his children spending a decade in prison. Despite everything, the image was painful. Is there any way to separate the restitution issue from her sentence? He asked finally. I want my money back and I want justice, but I'm not sure I want Zach and Lily's mother in prison for 10 years. Gloria was silent for a moment. There might be options. I can speak with her attorney about a plea that focuses on financial penalties and probation rather than incarceration. But Warren, she added cautiously, are you sure that's what you want? After everything she did, Warren thought about the home he'd lost, the trust that had been violated, the pain his children had experienced. But he also thought about the future, his future and theirs. I've spent my life building things, he said finally. I don't know that destroying Bridget completely serves any purpose now. Not with Dorian facing serious time. I'll see what we can arrange, Gloria promised. But the final decision will be up to the judge. 2 weeks later, plea agreements were finalized for all parties. Dorian Chambers received 18 years with no possibility of parole for 10. The assets from his various fraud schemes were seized for victim restitution, including the property where the burnt mansion had stood. Bridget, in exchange for a full confession and forfeiture of all assets gained through the conspiracy, received 5 years, with all but 1 year suspended in favor of probation and community service. The judge, persuaded by arguments about family reconciliation and Warren's unusual advocacy for leniency, agreed that extended incarceration served no additional purpose given the circumstances. On the day of sentencing, Warren attended court with Zach and Lily. They sat together as the judge delivered the sentences, maintaining composure as legal language formalized the dissolution of their family structure. When it was over, Bridget was allowed a moment with her children before being taken into custody to begin her 1-year sentence. Warren stood back, giving them privacy for their emotional goodbyes. As Bridget was led away, she caught Warren's eye across the courtroom. In that brief moment, something passed between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but a tacit acknowledgement of the history they shared and the separate paths that lay ahead. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements. Warren declined to comment, escorting his children to a quiet coffee shop several blocks away where they could process the day's events in peace. "I don't understand why you push for a lighter sentence for Mom," Lily admitted as they sat together. After what she did, Warren considered his answer carefully. Punishing your mother more severely wouldn't undo the damage or return what was lost. At some point, you have to decide what serves the future rather than avenging the past. Zach studied his father with newfound respect. "That's pretty evolved, Dad." Warren smiled slightly. "Don't give me too much credit. I had plenty of moments wanting them all to suffer. But eventually, you have to choose what kind of foundation you want to build on going forward." As they talked, Warren's phone buzzed with a text from Gloria. "Restitution order signed. Property assets returning to you, including house sale proceeds. Congratulations." Warren showed the message to his children, who responded with cautious optimism. "So we get the money back," Zach noted. "But not the house itself?" "The house is gone," Warren acknowledged. "But we could build something new." Lily tilted her head questioningly. "What do you mean?" Warren hesitated, then shared the idea that had been forming in his mind. "The Westfield property, the one where they were building their mansion. It's being transferred to me as part of the restitution. I've been thinking about what to do with it." "Sell it," Zach suggested. "I could," Warren agreed. "But I've also considered building something there. Not a mansion, but a home. Maybe one with separate spaces for when you both visit. A fresh start on our own terms." Lily smiled for the first time that day. "I'd like that. Something we designed together." "Exactly," Warren confirmed. "Blackwood Family Project. If you're interested, Zach, it could be your first major architectural exercise." Zach's eyes lit up. "Seriously? You let me design it?" With supervision, Warren qualified with a smile. "But yes, time to put that expensive education to work." As they began discussing possibilities, Warren felt a weight lifting that had been pressing on him for months. The road ahead wasn't clear or easy. There were still legal matters to resolve, relationships to rebuild, and trust to reestablish. But for the first time since discovering Bridget's betrayal, Warren could envision a future not defined by what he had lost, but by what he might yet build. Chapter 8. Structural Integrity. The year following the sentencing brought gradual stability to Warren's life. With the legal proceedings largely concluded, he focused on rebuilding his business and strengthening relationships with his children. The restitution from Dorian's assets provided financial security, though Warren found the emotional recovery more challenging than the financial one. He sold his downtown apartment and moved temporarily into a rental house while plans for the Westfield property developed. Zach, embracing the opportunity to design the new home, produced increasingly sophisticated drafts under Warren's guidance. Lily contributed ideas for the landscape design, envisioning gardens and outdoor spaces that reflected their family's new beginning. Warren maintained limited contact with Bridget during her incarceration, primarily coordinating her communications with the children. The woman he encountered during occasional prison visits seemed genuinely remorseful, though Warren remained cautious about interpreting her apparent transformation. She asks about you, Lily mentioned after one visiting day. Want to know if you're doing okay. Warren nodded noncommittally. I'm fine. Better every day. She seems different, Lily continued tentatively. More like the mom I remember from when we were kids. Prison has a way of clarifying priorities, Warren replied, neither endorsing nor dismissing Bridget's apparent change of heart. Time will tell if it's lasting. 8 months into Bridget's sentence, Warren received an unexpected letter from her. Unlike their procedural communications about the children, this one was deeply personal. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did and why, she wrote. There's no excuse for betraying you and our family. I convinced myself I deserved more, that you were somehow holding me back, but the truth was simpler and uglier. I was selfish and easily manipulated by Dorian's promises. Warren read the letter several times, unsure how to respond, or even if he should. Part of him wanted to dismiss it as another manipulation, but the raw honesty seemed genuine. After deliberating for days, he composed a brief, measured reply. Thank you for your letter. I appreciate your taking responsibility. We can't change the past, but I hope you find peace with it. The kids are doing well and looking forward to your release. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement, a small step toward whatever their relationship would become in the future. Meanwhile, Warren's friendship with Gloria Preston evolved cautiously. With the major legal hurdles cleared, the professional barriers between them diminished. They began seeing each other socially, though both were careful to move slowly, given the circumstances of their meeting. I don't usually date former clients, Gloria admitted during a dinner at her home, 6 months after the sentencing. And I don't usually date prosecutors, Warren countered with a smile. But these aren't usual circumstances. Gloria regarded him thoughtfully. Are you sure you're ready for this? After everything with Bridget, Warren considered the question seriously. I'm not the same person I was before all this happened. I'm more cautious, more observant. But I'm also not willing to let what happened define the rest of my life. Fair enough, Gloria replied. But there's no rush. We both have complicated lives, demanding careers. Their relationship developed gradually over the following months, built on mutual respect and shared experiences rather than the intense chemistry that had characterized Warren's early relationship with Bridget. Warren found comfort in Gloria's straightforward nature and integrity, qualities he now valued above all others. As the anniversary of the restaurant confrontation approached, Warren stood on the Westfield property, surveying the progress of what would become his new home. The charred remains of Dorian's grand design had been cleared away, replaced by the foundation of a more modest but thoughtfully designed structure. Zach, now working part-time for Warren's company while completing his degree, pointed out features of the emerging building. We've oriented the main living spaces to capture the best views, but without the ostentation of Chambers' design. And here, he indicated a wing extending from the main structure, separate guest quarters that could eventually become an in-law suite if needed. Warren nodded approvingly. You've thought of everything. Not everything, Zach admitted, but I'm learning. This project has taught me more than 2 years of classes. As they walked the property, Warren's phone rang. It was Gloria. I just received interesting news, she said after they exchanged greetings. Dorian Chambers was transferred to maximum security yesterday after an incident at the medium security facility. What kind of incident? Warren asked. Apparently, he tried to bribe a guard to smuggle in contraband. When that failed, he threatened the guard's family. Gloria's tone was serious. He's not adapting well to incarceration. Warren absorbed this information with a complex mix of emotions. I'm not surprised. Men like Dorian believe rules don't apply to them. There's more, Gloria continued. During the investigation of the bribing attempt, they uncovered communications suggesting he's still trying to manipulate events from inside, including some concerning references to you. Warren tensed. What kind of references? Nothing explicitly threatening, Gloria clarified. But he's apparently fixated on you as the source of his downfall. The prison psychologist has flagged it as a concerning obsession. Warren glanced at Zach, who was examining construction details nearby, oblivious to the conversation. Should I be worried? Not immediately, Gloria assured him. He's now in a much more restrictive environment with all communications monitored. But I wanted you to be aware. After hanging up, Warren rejoined Zach, his mind turning over this new information. Despite Dorian's incarceration and the dismantling of his schemes, the man's toxic influence continued to ripple outward. Warren wondered if he would ever truly be free of the shadow cast by the conspiracy. 2 weeks later, Warren received another update, this time from an unexpected source. Harold Moss, Ted Cole's former business partner, requested a meeting at Warren's office. I've been sorting through the wreckage of the accounting firm, Harold explained as they sat in Warren's conference room. Try to make restitution to clients who were defrauded by Ted's schemes. Warren nodded sympathetically. Can't be easy cleaning up someone else's mess. It's not, Harold agreed. But that's not why I'm here. In reviewing old files, I found something concerning. Something related to Dorian Chambers' original targeting of you. Warren leaned forward. I'm listening. Harold placed a folder on the table. These are emails between Ted and Dorian from 3 years ago. They discuss accessing your assets through Bridget, as you already know. But there's something that wasn't included in the trial evidence. Something about a contingency plan if you proved more resistant than expected. Warren opened the folder, scanning the printed emails. The exchanges were familiar until he reached one dated a few months before he discovered the conspiracy. B is on board, but W showing unexpected resistance to property sale, Ted had written. Might need to implement contingency. D says he has resources if needed. Dorian's reply was chilling. Resources standing by. If financial pressure insufficient, other methods available. Property can be transferred in multiple ways. Preference is voluntary, but not required. Warren looked up at Harold. This sounds like they were considering more than fraud. Harold nodded grimly. That was my reading as well. When the property sale wasn't proceeding as quickly as they wanted, they were exploring other options, possibly including physical harm. Why wasn't this included in the evidence? Warren asked. It was in a hidden email account I only recently discovered, Harold explained. Ted had dozens of aliases for different aspects of his schemes. This particular account was dedicated to the most sensitive communications. Warren studied the emails again. If they were willing to consider harming me then, what about now? Dorian has even more reason to hold a grudge. That's why I brought these to you, Harold said. I've already forwarded copies to the prosecutor's office, but I thought you should be personally aware. After Harold departed, Warren called Gloria to discuss the emails. She confirmed they had been received and were being evaluated for potential additional charges. This elevates things, she acknowledged. Conspiracy to commit violence is significantly more serious than financial fraud. We'll be increasing scrutiny of Chambers' prison communications and adding this to his case file. The revelation of the contingency plan cast a shadow over Warren's progress. While he had been rebuilding his life, moving forward with new projects and relationships, Dorian's hatred had apparently been festering, seeking outlets even from behind prison walls. Warren increased security measures at both his temporary home and the construction site. Gloria arranged for periodic police patrols, and Warren installed comprehensive surveillance systems at all his properties. He briefed Zach and Lily on the situation, wanting them prepared without causing undue panic. So this guy's still obsessed with you? Zach asked during a family dinner. Even after everything that's happened? Some people can't accept responsibility for their own failures, Warren explained. It's easier for Dorian to blame me than to acknowledge his own choices led him here. Lily looked worried. But he's in maximum security now, right? He can't actually do anything. Probably not directly, Warren acknowledged. But people like Dorian have connections. We're just being cautious. Despite the lingering threat, Warren refused to put his life on hold. The construction of the new house continued. His business thrived with several major contracts, and his relationship with Gloria deepened. They began discussing a future together, albeit tentatively. I never expected to find something like this after my divorce, Gloria admitted one evening as they walked the perimeter of the nearly completed house. Especially not with someone I met through a case. Warren squeezed her hand. Sometimes foundations appear in unexpected places. 3 weeks before Bridget's scheduled release, Warren received a request to visit her at the prison. He hesitated, unsure whether direct contact would be productive for either of them. After discussing it with Gloria and the children, he decided to go. The woman who sat across from him in the prison visiting room bore little resemblance to the confident, sometimes arrogant wife he had known. Bridget's copper hair had dulled somewhat, and the carefully maintained polish she had always cultivated was noticeably absent. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steadier than her appearance suggested. "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I," Warren admitted. "What did you want to discuss?" Bridget folded her hands on the table. "I'm being released soon. I wanted to talk about what happens next with the kids, with our legal arrangements, all of it." Warren nodded. "I've arranged for the remainder of your personal belongings to be delivered to your parents' house. Zach and Lily know you'll be out soon. They'll contact you when they're ready." "And you?" Bridget asked cautiously. "Where do we stand?" Warren considered his response carefully. "We're divorced. The legal matters are resolved. Beyond necessary interactions regarding the children, I don't see that we have much to discuss." Bridget nodded, accepting this assessment. "That's fair. But there's something else you should know." She leaned forward slightly. "I've been receiving letters from Dorian." Warren's attention sharpened. "Letters? How?" "He's in maximum security with monitored communications. They come through a former associate of his," Bridget explained. "Someone who visits other inmates and passes messages." "Warren, he's still fixated on you, still blaming you for everything." "I'm aware," Warren replied, thinking of Harold's discovery. "Gloria, ADA Preston, informed me about his obsession." Bridget's expression grew more urgent. "It's worse than an obsession. He's making plans, Warren. In his letters, he talks about people on the outside who owe him favors. People who are willing to act on his behalf." Warren studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or deceit. "Why are you telling me this? Why not take it to the authorities?" "I have," Bridget assured him. "I've given copies of everything to my lawyer. But I wanted to warn you personally. I know you have no reason to trust me, but—" She paused, seeming to struggle with her words. "Despite everything, I don't want to see you harmed. The children need their father." Warren absorbed this, his skepticism warring with the apparent sincerity of her warning. "What exactly has he suggested in these letters?" "He's referenced your new house, the one you're building on what was supposed to be our property. He knows the layout, Warren. He's mentioned specific details about the construction." Bridget's voice dropped lower. "And he's talked about making sure you never get to enjoy it." A chill ran through Warren. The only way Dorian could know details about the house design would be through someone with access to the construction site or the architectural plans. "When did you receive the most recent letter?" he asked. 3 days ago, Bridget replied. "I've asked my lawyer to forward everything to ADA Preston immediately." Warren nodded, already mentally reviewing who had access to the property and plans. "I appreciate the warning," he said finally. "Whatever else has happened between us, I believe you're sincere about this." As he stood to leave, Bridget looked up at him. "Warren, be careful. Dorian doesn't just want revenge. He wants to destroy everything you've built, literally and figuratively." That evening, Warren met with Gloria at her office, where she was reviewing the letters Bridget had provided. "These are concerning," Gloria acknowledged, spreading the pages across her desk. "The level of detail about your new house, your routines, even your relationship with me. He's definitely getting information from someone with close access." Warren paced the office. "I've been thinking about who could be feeding him information. The construction crew changes depending on the phase, but there are a few constants: the foreman, the project manager, a couple of senior craftsmen." "What about your office staff?" Gloria suggested. "Someone that would have access to plans, schedules, contracts." Warren frowned. "Most have been with me for years. I trust them." "Someone trusted betrayed you before," Gloria reminded him gently. Warren acknowledged this painful truth with a nod. "What's the next step? Can you increase his restrictions based on these letters?" "We're already working on it," Gloria assured him. "The prison is conducting a full investigation into how he's sending unauthorized communications. But we also need to identify his outside contact, the person providing information and potentially planning to act on his behalf. That night, unable to sleep, Warren reviewed security footage from the construction site. Hours of mundane activity revealed nothing suspicious until he noticed a pattern. A delivery truck from a building supply company appeared regularly, often staying longer than typical for standard deliveries. The driver frequently wandered the site, taking what appeared to be casual interest in the construction details. Warren zoomed in on the driver's face, not recognizing him initially. Then, checking older footage, he realized the man had changed his appearance over time. Shorter hair, added beard, different clothing styles. But certain mannerisms remained consistent. He called Gloria immediately, despite the late hour. "I think I've identified Dorian's contact," he said without preamble when she answered. Walt Jenkins, the foreman who worked for Dorian on the original mansion project. "He's disguised himself and gotten hired by our building supplier." "Are you certain?" Gloria asked, fully alert despite being woken. "Reasonably," Warren confirmed. "He's been regularly on site, taking unusual interest in construction details, and has changed his appearance multiple times. It fits Bridget's warning about someone feeding Dorian information." "Don't approach him," Gloria warned. "I'll contact the detective handling the case immediately. We need surveillance on this person before making any moves." The next morning, Warren adjusted work schedules to ensure neither he nor Zach would be at the construction site. He cited inspection issues as the reason, not wanting to alarm the crew or tip off Walt. Gloria arranged for undercover officers to monitor the property while detectives investigated the delivery driver's identity. By afternoon, Gloria's suspicions were confirmed. The driver was indeed Walter Jenkins, former foreman for Chambers Custom Estates. More concerning, Jenkins had a criminal record that included assault charges that had been mysteriously dropped, likely due to Dorian's influence. "We've got enough to bring him in for questioning," Gloria informed Warren by phone. "The surveillance team is watching him now, waiting for the right moment to make the arrest without creating a scene." Warren's relief was short-lived. Just after sunset, he received an urgent call from the police detective. "Jenkins made an unscheduled delivery to your construction site," the detective reported. "He spent approximately 15 minutes inside the structure before leaving. Officers followed, but lost him in traffic. We've secured the site and are bringing in bomb squad as a precaution." Warren's heart raced. "Bomb squad? You think he planted explosives?" "We don't know," the detective admitted. "But given the threats and his suspicious behavior, we're not taking chances. Stay away from the property until we give the all clear." Warren spent an agonizing night waiting for updates. The bomb squad found no explosives, but did discover something potentially more sinister. Critical support structures in the new house had been subtly compromised. Load-bearing elements had been partially cut or weakened, not enough to cause immediate collapse, but sufficient to ensure catastrophic failure once the house was completed and occupied. "This is attempted murder," Gloria stated flatly when they reviewed the findings the next morning. He was setting up a delayed structural failure that would likely have killed anyone inside when it eventually collapsed. A statewide manhunt for Jenkins began immediately. His apartment yielded further evidence of the plot, including architectural plans of Warren's new house with key structural points marked and a series of coded letters from Dorian detailing the sabotage plan. 3 days later, Jenkins was apprehended attempting to cross into Canada. Under questioning, he revealed the full extent of Dorian's revenge plan. The structural sabotage was just Phase 1. Phase 2 involved similar attacks on Warren's current residence and business property. The ultimate goal was to destroy everything Warren had built: his home, his business, his reputation, and ultimately his life. With Jenkins in custody and new charges filed against Dorian, the immediate threat subsided. Warren hired structural engineers to thoroughly inspect and repair the damage to the new house, implementing additional reinforcements beyond code requirements as a precaution. The incident resulted in increased security at the prison housing Dorian, with all his privileges revoked and his communications severely restricted. The investigation uncovered 3 prison employees who had been helping him communicate with the outside world, all of whom faced criminal charges themselves. As the dust settled, Warren found the near miss had clarified his priorities. Life was too unpredictable, too precious to waste on lingering resentments or delayed happiness. He accelerated construction on the new house, eager to complete the project that had become a symbol of his resilience. When Bridget was released from prison, Warren met with her briefly to express gratitude for her warning. Their interaction was cordial but distant, both acknowledging that their paths had permanently diverged. She moved in temporarily with her parents, focusing on rebuilding her relationship with Zach and Lily while exploring employment options compatible with her probation terms. 6 months after Jenkins' arrest, Warren stood in the completed great room of his new house, surveying the space that had nearly become a death trap, but instead emerged as a testament to careful reconstruction. The design, a collaboration between father and son, balanced modern aesthetics with traditional craftsmanship. Large windows capturing the spectacular views, open spaces encouraging family gatherings, and private areas providing necessary retreat. Zach stood beside him, pride evident in his posture. "What do you think, Dad? Worth all the trouble?" Warren placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "More than worth it. You've created something exceptional here." "We created it," Zach corrected. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance." As they walked through the house, making final preparations for the housewarming party planned for the weekend, Warren reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed him had instead forced him to rebuild stronger foundations in his home, his business, and his relationships. The housewarming gathering was deliberately intimate. Zach and Lily, Gloria, a few close friends and trusted colleagues. No grand statements or public declarations, just quiet celebration of resilience and new beginnings. During a quiet moment on the terrace overlooking the property, Gloria joined Warren as he gazed at the sunset. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, handing him a glass of wine. Warren smiled, accepting the glass. "Just thinking about foundations, how you never really know their strength until they're tested." Gloria nodded, understanding the metaphor. "And yours held." Eventually, Warren acknowledged, with some necessary reinforcement. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the colors shift across the sky. Finally, Warren turned to face her. "I've been meaning to ask you something," he began. "This house has plenty of space, and you mentioned your lease is ending next month." Gloria raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me to move in, Warren Blackwood?" "I'm suggesting it might be practical," he replied with a smile, "but also that I've learned not to waste time when something feels right." Gloria considered this, her expression thoughtful. "Moving in together is a significant step." "It is," Warren agreed, "but I think we've both learned that solid relationships are built on more than just passion or convenience. They're built on trust, respect, and shared values, all of which take time to develop properly," Gloria added. Warren nodded. "I'm not suggesting rushing anything, just acknowledging that at our age, with our experiences, we know what matters and what doesn't." Gloria's smile widened. "In that case, I think your suggestion has merit. Let's discuss the practical details later." She clinked her glass against his. "Tonight, let's just celebrate this beautiful home you've built from the ashes of betrayal." Inside, Zach was showing Lily and their friends features of the house he had designed, his confidence growing with each explanation. Watching from the terrace, Warren felt a profound contentment. The house that Bridget and Dorian had planned to build with stolen funds had instead become something entirely different, a symbol of Warren's refusal to be defined by their betrayal. As the evening progressed, Warren found himself thinking less about the past and more about the future. The conspiracy that had nearly destroyed him was now just a chapter in his story, not the defining one. Ahead lay new projects, new challenges, and new joys, a life rebuilt on foundations too strong for any saboteur to undermine. In the end, Warren reflected, true revenge wasn't about destroying those who had wronged him. It was about thriving despite their best efforts, building something more meaningful than what had been lost. The house around him wasn't just a structure of wood and stone and glass. It was a statement of principles, a declaration that betrayal could damage, but not defeat a man who understood the value of solid ground. Chapter 9. Final Appraisal. 1 year after the housewarming party, Warren stood in the kitchen of his Westfield home, preparing breakfast as sunlight streamed through the eastern windows. Gloria moved around him with the easy familiarity of shared space, retrieving coffee mugs from cabinets and setting the island for their morning meal. Their transition to living together had progressed more smoothly than either had anticipated. Gloria's pragmatic nature complemented Warren's approach to life, creating a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose rather than the volatile chemistry that had characterized his marriage to Bridget. Zach called last night after he went to bed. Gloria mentioned pouring coffee for them both. He's finished the preliminary designs for the riverfront commercial project. Warren nodded approvingly. Good timing. The investors are meeting next week. Did he send the renderings? Already forwarded them to your email, Gloria confirmed. They're impressive, Warren. Your son has real talent. Pride swelled in Warren's chest. After completing his degree, Zach had joined Blackwood Construction full-time, bringing fresh ideas and technological expertise that had helped the company secure several prestigious projects. Their professional relationship had strengthened their personal bond, allowing Warren to mentor his son while respecting his emerging identity as a designer in his own right. Lily, meanwhile, had completed her veterinary studies and recently begun an internship at a wildlife rehabilitation center, her compassionate nature finding purpose in healing injured animals. She maintained cautious contact with Bridget, their relationship slowly healing though never returning to its former closeness. As Warren and Gloria ate breakfast, their conversation turned to the upcoming 5-year anniversary of the restaurant confrontation that had exposed the conspiracy. Hard to believe it's been that long, Warren reflected. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Gloria studied him thoughtfully. Does it still hurt to think about it? Warren considered this. Not like it used to. It's more like an old injury that occasionally aches but doesn't limit movement anymore. That's a healthy perspective, Gloria observed. Many people never reach that point after betrayal. Warren smiled slightly. I had good counsel. Their morning was interrupted by Warren's phone ringing. Dwayne Cooper from the FBI. Warren, Dwayne greeted him, his tone professionally serious. Sorry to disturb your weekend, but there's a development you should know about. Dorian Chambers was involved in a prison altercation yesterday. He's in critical condition. Warren absorbed this news with surprising neutrality. What happened? Details are still emerging, but it appears he attempted to establish a power position with the wrong group of inmates. The beating was severe, punctured lung, intracranial bleeding, multiple fractures. Will he survive? Warren asked, meeting Gloria's concerned gaze across the table. Doctors give him about a 50-50 chance, Dwayne replied. I wanted you to hear it from me rather than the news. Given your history, we're monitoring the situation closely in case this somehow connects to your case. After thanking Dwayne for the information, Warren set his phone down slowly. Dorian's been severely injured in prison, he explained to Gloria. May not survive. Gloria watched him carefully. How do you feel about that? Warren took a moment to examine his emotions. Oddly detached, he admitted finally. I spent so long being afraid of what he might do, being angry about what he did do. Now I just feel nothing in particular. That's actually significant progress, Gloria noted. He no longer has emotional power over you. The news of Dorian's condition spread quickly. By evening, Warren had received calls from both Zach and Lily, checking on his reaction. Bridget texted a simple message. I heard about D.C. Are you okay? Warren replied with equal brevity. I'm fine. This doesn't change anything. 3 days later, Dwayne called again. Dorian had succumbed to his injuries, dying without regaining consciousness. The prison investigation had classified it as a typical power struggle among inmates, unrelated to Warren's case. The news triggered a wave of media interest in the original conspiracy, with several reporters contacting Warren for comment. Following Gloria's advice, he issued a simple statement through his attorney. While I cannot condone violence of any kind, Mr. Chambers' passing closes a difficult chapter for many people hurt by his actions. My focus remains on my family and business. Privately, Warren found himself reflecting on the strange journey that had brought him to this point. 5 years earlier, Dorian Chambers had been an unknown figure plotting behind the scenes to destroy Warren's life. Now, the man was dead, while Warren stood stronger than before, surrounded by a reconfigured but resilient family and a thriving business. A week after Dorian's death, Warren received an unexpected request from Bridget to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. After consulting with Gloria, who encouraged the meeting as potential closure, Warren agreed. Bridget arrived looking more like her former self than Warren had seen since before the conspiracy unraveled. Her copper hair was styled simply but elegantly, her clothing professional without the flashy elements she had once favored. She carried herself with quiet dignity rather than the brutal confidence of years past. "Thank you for meeting me," she began after they had settled with their coffees. "I know it's unexpected." Warren nodded. "What's on your mind, Bridget?" "Dorian's death," she replied directly. "It's made me think about endings and accountability. I was never completely honest with you about how everything started." Warren leaned back slightly, preparing himself. "I'm listening." Bridget took a deep breath. "I told myself I was manipulated by Dorian, that I fell under his spell. That's partially true, but not the whole truth. I was unhappy before he appeared, Warren. Not because you were a bad husband, but because I was chronically dissatisfied with my life." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I watched my father manipulate financial situations to create the lifestyle my mother wanted. I grew up believing that was normal, that rules were flexible if you were clever enough. When Dad got into trouble with his gambling, Dorian Solutions seemed like an extension of that family pattern." Warren absorbed this without comment, allowing her to continue. "The affair started as excitement, something that made me feel special when I was feeling invisible in my own life. But it evolved into something uglier when Dorian realized who I was married to and what assets we had." Bridget met Warren's eyes directly. "I want you to know that I never intended for you to be physically harmed. When I discovered those plans, that's when I began to see how far I'd strayed from who I thought I was." "Why are you telling me this now?" Warren asked quietly. "Because with Dorian gone, there's no one left to blame but myself," Bridget replied. "And because I want our children to see that I can take full responsibility without excuses." She paused. "Also because you deserved better than the story I told myself to justify what I did." Warren studied the woman across from him, once his wife, partner, and co-parent, now essentially a stranger with whom he shared only history and children. "I appreciate your honesty," he said finally. "It helps me understand some things I've wondered about." Bridget nodded, seeming relieved by his response. "There's one more thing. My father is declining rapidly. His cancer has returned and spread. He may only have months left. He wants to see you, to apologize in person." Warren's immediate impulse was refusal. Ted Cole had not only participated in the conspiracy, but had initiated the connection with Dorian that set everything in motion. "I'll think about it," he said instead. "No promises." As they prepared to leave, Bridget hesitated. "Warren, I know this is presumptuous, but I want you to know I'm grateful for the leniency you advocated for during my sentencing. It allowed me to rebuild some kind of relationship with our children. I'll never be able to repay that." Warren shrugged slightly. It wasn't about repayment. It was about what served the future rather than the past. Bridget smiled sadly. "You always were the builder between us. I just never appreciated it until it was too late." After reporting the conversation to Gloria that evening, Warren considered Ted's request. Despite his reluctance, he understood the value of closure, not just for Ted, but potentially for himself as well. 2 weeks later, Warren found himself sitting beside Ted Cole's hospice bed. The once robust accountant had been reduced to a skeletal figure, his skin yellowed with jaundice, his breathing labored. Vivian, who had completed her own prison sentence the previous year, hovered anxiously nearby. "Warren," Ted managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Didn't think you'd come." "Neither did I," Warren admitted, maintaining a respectful distance from the bed. Ted gestured weakly for Vivian to leave them alone. After she reluctantly departed, he turned his roomy eyes back to Warren. "Wanted to tell you myself," he began, pausing for breath between phrases. "It was all me at the start, not Bridget. Not even Dorian. I saw your success, your integrity. It made me feel inadequate. Warren remained silent, allowing Ted to continue at his own pace. Gambling debts were real, Ted continued, but I could have gotten help. Instead, I resented you. Fed Bridget subtle criticisms for years. Prepared the ground for Dorian's manipulation. Warren processed this confirmation of what he had long suspected, that the seeds of Bridget's discontent had been planted and nurtured by her father long before Dorian appeared. Why? Warren asked simply. Ted's laugh turned into a painful cough. Pride, envy. The deadly sins aren't just religious concepts, Warren. They're roadmaps to self-destruction. After regaining his breath, Ted continued, I'm not asking forgiveness. Just wanted you to know the truth. Bridget was a victim too, in her way. Different from you, but still damaged by my failings. Warren considered this perspective, finding a grain of truth in it despite his resistance. Bridget had been raised by a man who normalized dishonesty and manipulation, who resented his son-in-law's integrity rather than admiring it. I understand, Warren said finally. Not the same as forgiveness, but I understand. Relief washed over Ted's pained features. That's more than I deserve. One last thing. Watch over Vivian when I'm gone? Not for me. For the kids. Only grandparents they have left. Warren nodded noncommittally. I won't interfere with their relationship with her. It was as much as he could honestly offer, and Ted seemed to accept it as sufficient. The older man closed his eyes, clearly exhausted by the conversation. As Warren prepared to leave, Ted roused himself one final time. You built something good, Warren. Strong. Don't let our weakness make you doubt your own foundation. The drive home from the hospice facility gave Warren time to process the conversation. Ted's acknowledgement of his role as the original architect of the conspiracy provided a missing piece in Warren's understanding of what had happened to his marriage and family. When he arrived home, Warren found Gloria in the home office they shared, reviewing case files. She set aside her work when she saw his expression. How did it go? She asked. Warren settled into the chair across from her desk. Better than expected. Ted confirmed he had been undermining my relationship with Bridget long before Dorian appeared, out of envy and resentment. Gloria nodded thoughtfully. That fits with patterns I've seen in similar cases. Family influence is often the fertile ground where external manipulation takes root. He also asked me to maintain a relationship with Vivian after he's gone, for the kids' sake. What did you tell him? Warren shrugged, that I wouldn't interfere with their relationship with her. It's not my place to cut that connection, regardless of how I feel about her personally. Gloria studied him with evident admiration. You continue to prioritize what's right over what might feel satisfying in the moment. It's a rare quality, or stubborn practicality, Warren suggested with a slight smile. Burning bridges rarely benefits anyone in the long run. The following month brought Ted Cole's funeral, a subdued affair attended primarily by family and a few former clients who had escaped his financial manipulations. Warren attended with Zach and Lily, standing respectfully apart from Bridget and Vivian during the service. Afterward, at the cemetery, Vivian approached Warren hesitantly. Thank you for coming, she said, her once imperious manner replaced by genuine gratitude. It means a lot to Bridget. And to me. Warren nodded. Ted was family, whatever else happened. Vivian glanced toward where Bridget stood, talking quietly with Lily. She's trying, to be better than we taught her to be. I've noticed, Warren acknowledged. The kids have too. And you? Vivian asked cautiously. Can you ever forgive what we did? Warren considered his answer carefully. Forgiveness isn't something I can just announce to make you feel better. It's a process. I'm not carrying the anger I once did, if that's what you're asking. Vivian accepted this with a nod. Fair enough. That's more than we deserve. As summer turned to fall, Warren found himself increasingly at peace with his reconstructed life. The business was thriving, with Zach bringing in younger clients attracted to his innovative designs, while Warren maintained relationships with established customers who valued his reputation for integrity. Gloria had fully integrated into his life, her practical intelligence and ethical clarity providing a partnership unlike anything he had experienced before. They had discussed marriage, but decided their current arrangement served them well, a commitment based on choice rather than convention. Bridget continued her careful rehabilitation, working as an office manager for a local nonprofit and maintaining appropriate boundaries in her interactions with Warren. Their communications remained largely limited to matters concerning the children, though with decreasing tension over time. On the 5th anniversary of the restaurant confrontation, Warren received an unexpected package at his office. Inside was a framed architectural drawing of his current home, Zach's original concept sketch, professionally matted and preserved. The accompanying note read, "5 years ago today, you exposed a conspiracy that could have destroyed you. Instead, you built something stronger from the ruins. This house represents not just your resilience, but your fundamental character, solid, thoughtful, and built to last. With pride and gratitude, Zach and Lily." Warren studied the drawing, remembering the uncertain days when it had been created, when the property had represented both loss and possibility. Now, it was simply home, not just the structure itself, but the life he had constructed within its walls. That evening, as Warren and Gloria hosted Zach, Lily, and a few close friends for dinner, Warren found himself surveying the gathering with profound contentment. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed him had instead forced him to examine the true foundations of his life and rebuild them more carefully. During a quiet moment, Gloria found him standing on the terrace, gazing at the night sky. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, echoing their exchange from years earlier. Warren smiled, drawing her close. "Just appreciating the view and the journey that brought us here." "Any regrets?" she asked, leaning into his embrace. Warren considered this. "About how things unfolded." "Many. About where I've ended up." He shook his head. "Not one." Inside, laughter erupted as Zach recounted a story about a particularly demanding client. Lily's voice joined in, followed by the warm murmur of friendly conversation. Through the glass doors, Warren could see these people who formed the core of his reconstructed life. Not the family he had once envisioned, but one that had been tested and proven resilient. The house around them, built on the very ground where Dorian and Bridget had planned to construct their monument to betrayal, stood as tangible proof that destruction could be transformed into creation. What had been intended as the centerpiece of Warren's financial ruin had instead become the symbol of his reclaimed strength. Warren Blackwood, contractor and builder, had learned through painful experience that the most important foundations weren't laid in concrete and steel, but in honesty, integrity, and the courage to begin again when everything seemed lost. The house of cards his wife and her conspirators had constructed had collapsed spectacularly, while the structures Warren built, both physical and relational, stood solid against the storms that had tested them. As he rejoined the gathering inside, accepting a glass of wine and settling into the comfortable rhythm of conversation, Warren reflected that true revenge wasn't found in the downfall of those who had wronged him. It lived in his refusal to be defined by their betrayal, in his determination to build something worthy on the ground they had tried to claim. In the end, the house they had never built had given way to something far more valuable. A home, in every sense of the word, constructed not from stolen resources, but from hard-won wisdom and genuine connection. It was a foundation that would last, supporting not just the present moment, but all the future Warren had once feared lost. A future now spread before him like an architect's drawing, full of possibility and sound design. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.